I'm going to officially call our meeting to order. That's my knock knock. But there's... So we have two things on our agenda tonight. One is to go through the budget and with the finer tooth comb, the finest tooth, so we can have the numbers that we will present no longer to Blackstone because we've been moved to when? April something?
Yes, April 8th at 7 p.m.
April 8th at 7 p.m. For the Blackstone Finance Committee.
That's correct.
But we do have March 26th for the Millville Finance Committee.
Correct.
So we'll have a number to share with them. And on March 27th, we will meet here to certify our budget for FY, whatever number comes next, 20.
I'm sorry, one more time. Millville's the day before?
Yes.
So we're going to give them our
We are
budget
going to,
before we
yes.
certify?
We are.
So, oh, I have that, 26, 27.
Yep. But now Blackstone is not until April 8th. But before we do that, we did have on our agenda the selection of our regional, what do we call, RAC, our Regional Agreement Advisory Committee.
I thought it was Amendment Committee, but...
Amendment Committee, that's it. I knew it was something. Regional Agreement Amendment Committee. And we had several folks from each town. And so Sarah has those names. And as far as Board of Selectmen go, the Millville has not selected anyone yet. Blackstone, it will be Dan Keefe. And as far as Finance Committee goes, I think you have those.
Adrian Pettit for Millville and Mary Bolso for Blackstone.
Mary, what's Mary?
Bulso, B-U-L-S-O.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah, I know who that. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right. And then, so then we also said that we would have, Sarah will be the chair if we approve this tonight. And Tara will be the other representative. And Jason and Matt will also serve on that committee. And then we were going to pick a community member and a parent, or two community members, one of whom at least is someone who has children in the district. So, you have a preference for
I shared the
starting?
names today. I don't know if you guys had a chance to look. So I will read them aloud, I suppose.
Okay.
Get your pens ready.
Do you have a preference which town you want to start
I
with?
can start with Millville.
Okay.
So for Millville, we received letters of interest from the following parents: Amanda Gilman, Jennifer Gill, Mary Beth Haynes, Joe Frazier, Pam Maloney, and Jeremy West. And for community members, we received letters from Lori Vaz, V-A-Z, and Justin Allen. I'm not sure. He might be a
Justin
parent,
may
too.
be, I believe he's a parent as well.
Okay.
Yeah. I
Okay,
believe.
he's a
What, a
parent.
parent too?
They aren't in school yet, so I put them down
okay.
as community members.
Yeah.
And also, we'll do the parent vote first, and then anybody who didn't make
Gets
it for
a-
the
right.
parent position can be in the
Great.
community position.
Good idea. Does anybody have any of these people
nominate,
on
is
it
that what we do?
before, or, yeah, we could nominate someone?
Did people write letters, Sarah, or
Just
did
brief
they just...
letters of interest, like, I would like to
I'd
be
like to do
considered
it.
for the committee.
Yes.
Mary Beth was on it the last time around, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Both times.
But she's always willing to participate in anything, so
And Pam Maloney's very involved in the community.
She's from town, too.
and Jennifer Gill is,
Very involved, yep.
and her
And,
husband is FinCom. And we do have a FinCom member.
We
You have a
do.
FinCom
Yep.
member, yes.
and Jennifer's been coming to a lot of our meeting, I mean, more so than just, she's been coming to a lot of meetings.
Amanda Gilmain is a very involved parent also, and she actually was a Blackstone parent and has just recently moved to Millville. So she may have a
Kids
different
in
purview of her kids are in
I think they're
gosh, now.
elementary.
No, I think
One's
they're
in middle
older. I think
school.
middle
One's playing
school,
soccer
Yeah, I
with
think
Eli.
so too.
I don't know why I think that. I don't personally
maybe
know.
even
They went
a
to
freshman somewhere.
I don't know.
Sounds
I don't
like-
know.
And one is playing volleyball.
I know
think.
Jennifer and Mary Beth. Well, Pam,
Right.
I know.
And one played.
I know who they are.
both
I don't
middle
know
school and
them.
high school. I don't think any are elementary.
Right. I agree with that.
How should we do
It
it?
might
Should we
be
just
nice
make a
having
motion?
somebody-
Everybody makes a motion for,
If so, does anybody feel really strongly about any of these
I just
individuals?
appreciate that this many people stepped up. And
I agree. I was very happy to see. And I will say, anyone not selected to form on the official advisory committee, they are open meetings, they are welcome to attend. We certainly, at some point in time, may break into smaller groups and invite others. I mean, we didn't ask for teachers to participate or anything at this point.
Can we make a motion for the whole group? For the following, do we need a motion to accept them as,
We're just taking one.
oh, you're just taking.
One parent, one community member from each town is what you
So
wanted,
we
right?
chose to have a 12-person group. So it included one parent and one community member.
So would it
not
hurt
an
to have
open
more
group.
with
What?
parents? Wouldn't that only help us? The more parents.
I think
So-
when you're trying to navigate and make decisions, the
Yeah.
bigger the group, the
More cooks in the kitchen.
harder that
And we're
that
looking,
gets.
we're looking at Mars coming in and facilitating this process for us. So I don't, if people kind of, I would like to say that there's a designated group and official meetings and not kind of have people come and go, and schedule, I think, will become important as they do that.
and I don't know if there are votes that take place at these meetings, but these would be the voting members.
Correct.
Can I make a motion for someone?
Yes, absolutely.
I'd like to make a motion for Pam Maloney to
I'll second that.
join.
Okay. Anybody else have anyone? All right, Pam? Any discussion? Motion on the floor to accept Pam Maloney as the parent. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And now there, again, now we add all of the list. So we add Lori in and Justin, although I think Justin's a parent too.
Yeah.
Justin is an administrator in Burrillville?
He said Rhode Island.
Rhode Island.
I'm not sure
somewhere.
where.
Yes, I think he's in the technology, right? Is that the?
I'm not
yeah,
sure, yeah.
The technology administrator.
But that's another perspective. I wouldn't mind a male and female,
That's what I was gonna say. Could be nice to have a,
male and,
yeah. And I know that Jeremy West has a third grader and another one coming up soon. They're gonna be in preschool soon, I think.
So what are the names we're looking at for this next
Okay,
one?
Amanda is it Gilmain?
Yep.
Lori Vaz, Jennifer Gill, Mary Beth Haynes, Joe Frazier, Jeremy West, and Justin Allen.
And something Vaz, right? Did miss
I
that one?
pronounced it Vaz.
Oh, sorry.
It's my Nebraska accent.
do you know Jeremy?
I know, yes. His daughter is in Elena's grade at school, so that's how I know them.
Does anybody know Justin?
I don't know Justin.
I'll make a motion for Mary Beth Haynes. She's stepped forward for many things before. She reached out to me separately, interested in participating. I didn't hear from any others. I know they were submitting to Sarah, but I mean, she's a parent of two and has been very involved with other things in our district.
I think she also has the history behind the other two times that we've researched this.
Which would
So
be
I'll second
helpful,
that.
yeah.
She has a very good memory.
Yeah, she might be good for reference. And
All right. Would anyone like to bring anyone else to the table? Okay. So any discussion on Mary Beth, which we've already heard some? All those in favor of Mary Beth, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Blackstone.
Okay, Blackstone, we had 4 people interested, 3 parents. We'll start with them. We have Courtney Tennyson, Chris Moran, and Lori Takalo. And it was Lori attended the last meeting that we had and said she was interested, so.
Yeah, she's attended a couple, and she's tried to get involved before.
And you had one community member.
We have 1 community member, Mike Buckley. So, you want to vote on the parents first?
Yeah,
Like
that's
we
okay.
did for
We're not
Millville.
considering parents, community members?
Yes, we
So
are.
we just
We
put
did
them
the
in.
Yeah, that's how
first,
we did
and
it
then
last
we
time,
left
too.
everybody else in
So
every
we, so,
community.
yeah, so they'll move to,
So the, whatever parent
if
doesn't.
we don't pick, then they move to the community pocket.
I know Chris. I know Chris Moran has elementary school kids.
And preschool too, maybe, or
Yeah.
younger, so,
She's been in town.
yeah. But you said Lori's been attending?
Lori's
Yeah.
been attending, Lori expressed
Expressed an
interest in,
so.
She said yes.
and she spoke up.
Yeah.
At that meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and she said she wanted to do it, so,
Then should we make a motion for Lori
okay. Is there a second?
Hollow?
Second?
Okay. Does anybody want to nominate anyone else? Any other discussion about Lori? Right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now we have Courtney, Chris, and Mike Buckley.
I would like to make a motion for Chris Moran.
Second.
Okay.
That's for community member, right?
Yeah. Anyone else?
I would like to make a motion for Mike Buckley.
And I will second that. Let's have a discussion about the people's feelings on those.
So I guess they're both beneficial I mean, one
Different
has
ways.
children in the system and one has the history behind the regional
Yeah.
agreement that has significant background knowledge. So I guess my question would be, what is the vision of this particular group? Is the vision for this group to do the history and to move forward? Or is the vision of this group to collect data and present with the hope of moving forward? So I think both of them have great interests. They're very different interests. I would support either one, but I think I would like to understand and maybe I just wasn't here, but the vision behind this, I'm sure it's going to be to collect data, to find the information, and to make the best judgment call. That's just.
So first and foremost, the goal of that group is to find and secure our most up-to-date regional agreement. Because when we contacted the Department of Education, it is not the agreement that we have on our website that they have as our regional agreement. Although they say they have amendments, but they were never approved by the commissioner. And so our first and foremost is to get a governance document that is what we think is a legitimate governance. So we need people to research and go back into what the towns have voted on and what was approved by both communities, what the language was then, and build what essentially we believe is the governance document so that we can amend that to be a working document. And the second phase of that then is to say what substantial changes, if any, do we want to make to this document. But first phase is to get a governance document we all agree is the document. And I'll give you a perfect example. Recently, there's been chatter about, the school committee ought to release its numbers earlier, the budget ought to be out. They always wait till the end to see what the towns have. Well, the regional agreement says when we put our budget out, and when we first put our numbers and have to have our final numbers by. So if people want that earlier, we need to change that to be earlier. So there's, I think, a lot of issues that are out there that people don't understand what the regional agreement even covers in terms of governance. So the first goal of that committee is to work with the Mars folks to amend it to make sure we are up to date in all the ed reform, because the copy of the regional agreement Department of Ed has is older than ed reform. So,
1982.
But we're clearly operating on the last one that was approved by our towns, which allowed the sixth graders to move out of their elementary schools and into this building. To the best of my knowledge, that was the last one that was ever approved on the town floor. So we probably have to go back to our
so
towns.
we do. We have to
see.
go back to the towns and pull records and data, and see, and then we have to see, are there any state laws or policies that need to be addressed in terms of regional agreement, in terms of ed reform, develop the document from that perspective, and if there are changes as a result of that, that has to go to the towns for approval if it was never approved in the first place, by both towns. And then it's to address changes we as a school committee think will help us meet our goals and objectives in delivering the best educational system to the communities, and that's where we're getting to the phase two. So we are looking at history, but as one of the people said at the meeting, and she said it very succinctly, history is great, but we need to move this thing forward. We can't spend 20 hours of meetings getting a history lesson.
Reliving it.
We need to find out what the history is and move forward. So that probably didn't answer your question.
Well, it just made it more difficult because I think phase one would be, obviously, Mr. Buckley has the history, but phase two, I think, moving the district forward. I just, having been on the committee, and Tara, I'm sure you can speak to this, the amount of social media attacks that come with that is very concerning to me. Specifically when Erin, I think it was you and myself ran this.
Yeah, we had a hard time with.
We had a very hard
Mike
time,
Buckley.
and I think that's what's making my decision very difficult, is because I want to move the district forward. And so I want the people on the committee to be strong and want to move the district forward. So that's,
Sure.
it's my concern.
Not saying that everyone that's participating has to be in favor of it, but they have to be willing to explore what is going, what might be best for the future of this district. And
And even more so than that, they need to not respond negatively to people who might respond negatively.
Correct. Or even respond negatively
To people that are-
a vision that might be different from your own. I think being open to dialogue and agreeing to disagree is appropriate, but when it becomes inappropriate, it's very concerning to me. So I guess that's why I was asking the question of, where are we moving with this? Because I think it would be great dialogue. I think it's a great thing, but I just worry that getting deeper down the road, what that can become, because we've lived it. Quite a few of us have lived it.
which I will say openly, that's why I'm not participating on this time, because we were attacked for trying to, whether people just didn't think we didn't have the right information, or, and nobody ever said we were hiding information. They were attacking any part of it that they could, so it didn't happen. The hours, days, months, the year that we put into it, it was all discredited, mostly on social media. So, which concerns me that we don't have a Millville Selectman volunteering, but that's another topic.
And I think when we have an opportunity to go in front of the Millville Selectmen in the future, we need to say that, because they should. This is a town governance document, truly. So they should have town representation from a selectman standpoint. But that's not our question on the table. Our question on the table is Mike or Chris, and we have the two motions, so we can vote for both and see if somebody gets the majority. So I don't know how we do that. Raise our hands? Oh.
would it be,
Or Chris was nominated first, we can take that vote and see if she has a majority?
and we can't add one more? Because I do think Phase 1, I do think Mr. Buckley would be a great advocate for Phase 1. And he is supportive of, he does support Millville. We don't have a selectman from Millville,
But this is Blackstone.
but this is Blackstone. I'm just saying that
If we add
Ticks
one
two
to
boxes.
Blackstone, we
Is
have
these
to.
some-
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying is.
He
you're
wears two
saying-
hats.
Kind of two
He wears
hats.
two
Yes.
hats.
Right.
So you're saying have 2 community members and a parent? And then we can add another one from Millville? Or,
Are we not getting a Millville Board of Selectmen? Was it just? that they're
No,
getting
well,
a-
so,
They want
so,
to find a designee.
Uh,
I
yeah,
thought I heard that as well.
yeah, that's what I
I saw that
heard.
meeting, but I
I
didn't
don't
know
know
that.
what they ended up doing.
I think we have to leave the number as it is.
Yep,
I mean,
I
it was
agree.
discussed at the last meeting. We're just gonna have to choose.
Okay.
So,
so
in,
we vote on 2 motions.
at the Board of well, when I was appointed to the school committee, the way they did it was you went up, you gave your spiel, and
Yeah.
then each person went around and just said who they would like.
Right, and then if somebody got the majority,
Yep.
that was the person. That's my sense. It would roll call, whatever, so.
May I ask a question?
Yes, you
Can
may.
part of the stipulations of this committee, like when you do your rules, be something about social media? Because quite honestly, the Blackstone list, I don't know Lori. I actually don't know Chris Moran, but I do know her from her Facebook presence. I know Courtney from her Facebook presence as well as some stuff in the, and Mike has a strong, they all are very strongly opinionated on Facebook. So I wonder if that's not something
We
you
could set up
kind of
ground
address in your
Yeah, sure.
setup, so that maybe that will,
That there's maybe one spokesperson for the group?
That's fine.
Will-
We can go over
maybe
ground
that
rules.
will
That's
limit-
definitely something that would
Yeah.
need to be
I
addressed,
mean, I sense
think.
that that's part of the concern, that can blow up pretty quickly, and I think you have
Just turn off the comments.
this particular Blackstone list, and again, I don't know Lori, but she's already in.
Yep.
The others do have a very strong Facebook presence, and may not always reread before they hit send. So, but, I mean, maybe that's what you do, but.
No, yeah, no. Okay. I think that's a good suggestion for the group. All right, so we'll do roll call. You want to start, Sarah?
She's the lead.
I'm gonna vote for Mike Buckley.
Mike Buckley.
Mike Buckley.
Mike Buckley.
Tara?
I'm torn. I think they both have, again, as we were talking about, strengths.
Go up, Mike.
Aaron? Chris. And I will go with Mike. So. And we'll see where that goes, but will you send letters to every person?
Yes.
Okay.
I like the idea of ground rules, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think even at the meetings, I think.
And feel free to send me some suggestions.
I
I wasn't involved in the last go-round, so let me know what to look out for.
I'm hoping that by having someone facilitate this process, it may rein some of that in, at least initially as well.
Where are we with that?
What?
Where are we with that?
That's next, I think.
Okay, sorry.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. You want me to?
Yep.
I'll start.
Yeah,
You
sure, please.
fill in the details. So we had a conference call with the consultants from Mars. Not from Mars, from, this is why I don't talk.
He had little
The
antennas.
Mass Association of Regional Schools. They do a consulting, they provide a consulting service for a cost. They've worked with other regional schools, Pioneer, Adams, Cheshire, they brought up Northern Berkshires. And they just gave us kind of the general overview of the services and what it looks like when they come in. They serve as a neutral party, and they made sure to point out that the towns would scream and yell at them instead of us, or instead of the superintendent, and be there to guide us through the legal process, because they're familiar with it, and also help to develop a marketing plan. The first thing they do is they go through the document. Well, first they find the document that we're working off of. They go through it on their own, so that we're not spending hours
Right.
working in
This
group,
is not
going
legal
through
or
section
whatever,
1,
yeah.
section 2. And it kind of, it makes it more efficient. They highlight areas of concern, and pull together the recommended language. They have it on file because they've done this with other districts. Obviously, you could change it around, but we wouldn't be starting from scratch. We asked about how long it would take. They said the process can take up to a year. Usually there's one meeting a month, and Mars does some work in between the meetings and sends out updates in between the meetings.
You captured it well, yeah.
It would need to go out for bid if we were to pursue their consultant services.
So, who else does it?
Why, how
They
much
said, I
is
think
this?
they said they're pretty much the only ones.
Isn't
Oh.
that not the cost?
Is it that much?
So they said that the typical project ranges between, was it somewhere between $10 and $20,000, and they charge about $90 an hour. Did I get that right?
With transportation.
Transportation.
I'm sorry, one more time?
Between
10 to 20,000.
$20,000, but the hourly rate, including transportation, was about $90 an hour.
90 plus
So they're
transportation or 90
average-
including?
They're saying that that's what it should come out
It
to.
shakes out somewhere between 10 and 20.
With the $90 an hour.
Yes,
I
at
thought I missed how many
$90 an hour.
hours they
Not
expected.
plus, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They sent us a PowerPoint and an example RFP that we can share. And they're also willing to come and make a presentation to the school committee about their services.
So we should probably schedule that.
Yeah.
And based on the fact that our agreement is not up to date according to what we think it is versus what's on file,
We
I
need
didn't want
that.
to spend this money. Like, I was, when we
Yeah.
had that first meeting, I was like, there has to be a way around this, but clearly we need their
Clearly.
support.
And we weren't, I mean, the process, it was supposed to go to the Department of Ed, or maybe this is a new process. It's supposed, once we come up with our language, send it to DESI. Then it comes back, then it goes to town meeting.
Correct.
They vote on it. If it's approved, it goes back to DESI.
Right.
Like, because it has to go through the legal department before it
Yeah.
even goes to
Yes.
town meeting. And I don't know
Yeah,
that we were
it ha-
doing that.
I don't-
I mean, I don't even know that the process was set up or explained to anybody before.
Right.
Like, everybody was kind of on their own, maybe.
I think I don't know if you sent it forward or when we made the motions on the town floor, but I don't know if, that any of us knew that that was the process. So you get preliminary approval from the Commissioner of Ed, then you can go forward to the town.
We were under the direction of an attorney at the time, so, he
Yeah,
had
you
written
were-
the language,
Yeah.
but I don't recall that being part of it. My other concern with this amount will be that a town not in favor of it will black mark us for spending money on something. However, I think the presentation to us, we have to start there. That has to be, because it's a presentation to the public, you
Right.
know, and that way it would be understood why we would choose or not choose to go in that direction. I think having that type of service last time could have been extremely helpful.
How, can I ask how close the vote was last time?
We didn't vote, we didn't,
Oh, it didn't make it?
Well,
Yeah.
it failed in Millville, and that because it failed in Millville,
No,
No, both
It
towns
passed in
voted.
I thought they
Blackstone.
both did. It passed in
Towns voted.
Blackstone, and
Millville was,
failed.
I thought it was fairly close.
And
I
it was
have the
like
number
23 votes or
somewhere. Yeah,
something
it
like
was,
that.
it wasn't huge.
It wasn't,
But did it have to be 2/3? Or was that a
No.
50/50?
it was
No, it's 50/50.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
50/50.
so yeah, it was something like 23.
but I guess I am ever hopeful that the community understands that we are trying to understand and have our records in order and have our information in order. And if we are working from an outdated, we're trying to do this right and have a governance document that's right. And
So it just sounds like the last time it was approved wasn't done through the commissioner, if they don't have that copy.
Yeah.
correct, correct.
Did you have town representatives
Yeah.
on the last committee?
We had
We had
about 25.
teachers
We had a
and-
lot of,
Sorry, I meant like Board of Selectmen.
yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it was Danny Keefe.
Yeah,
We didn't have anyone from Monroe.
And we had, I
yeah,
thought we had Jen.
We had Jen, but I don't think she was on
She
the,
didn't act, she
I
participated
could pull
as
up
a
the list.
parent.
yeah, she came initially, she was there when we developed the pros and cons.
I think she said she was just
But
there
I
to
don't, maybe,
observe.
yeah, probably, I don't know.
But I think we've come a long way, and, I mean, I've only been sitting in this chair for 2 years. Both years, we have talked about various reasons beneficial to all students that, for opening the agreement and kind of making changes. So, you know, I think previously, there were, the focus tends to go right to money, and how much money we can save. And I think if we go into this with a different view, like, this may not save us a penny. But if our goal, if our district goal that we have reviewed and talked about is to improve learning for all students, then we need that focus to be at the town level so that we can then make the improvements we need. Our goal continues to be to equalize resources and equalize services and improve our teaching and learning. And if that's if people can put that lens in and kind of put aside the town part of things, I think that this group will get much further than it has in the past. I mean, I think one of the go-throughs, transportation became an issue. So at some point, you get those folks involved earlier in the process and kind of work through all the answers. But I think we're in a different time now, and we've had many conversations about, you know, the fact that when one classroom gets to a certain number, and then we have to add a whole teacher because of one kid, or those situations, that's where, you know, it doesn't make sense to keep this closed and that. So there's a lot of things that can address if we go in with a better purview and overview than we did previously.
I have to agree with Tammy, and I have
Yeah.
to say that in the last few times that we've gone through this, we have not talked data, and we have not shown
Right.
percentages of the reading and the, I mean, I know numbers speak to people, and they speak to people in the budget, but they also speak to people when you know 42% of a certain grade level can't read. So this is what we need to do in order to get them to do that. I can honestly speak to, we did not have the support one of the times from our superintendent. We had an interim, another one that, I mean, it's just the way it rolled.
Right.
So I think we're in a better place now that has specific data to support the reason for the change to increase student achievement versus putting the brunt of this on a budgetary move. I think, you know, increasing student achievement, I think, will be a vision for both towns.
And you guys have done a lot of the, I mean, I looked through your file that you were using, all of your documents that you were using before, and you did a ton of work. Also, like, I mean, there was stuff in there about transportation.
We had
It was all there.
Telestone on there. We had a subgroup for transportation. We had a subgroup for buildings. We did building walkthroughs. I mean, people can just break you down. So I
Yeah.
think
I'll
having
just-
data
yeah.
that
That's
can't be
what-
broken
yeah.
down.
And I also
They
think,
went after
though,
whatever they thought the weak
And I've
spot.
heard both, that it was rushed through, or that it took too long. They took 10 years to do this, and, I mean, it can't be both.
well, but the
So
plain fact
it's
of the
just-
matter is, I still am hopeful, and to Tammy's point, if it's an educational discussion versus an
I
emotional
agree.
discussion. And if it's an educational discussion and it's a governance discussion, it is not a management. The towns do not manage the schools. The towns govern the schools. And we are the governing body of the schools, but we do not manage. It's not an administrative document. It is a governance document. And I think if we keep and hammering that, and I know people get into the emotion, and people are very tied to their thoughts and feelings, we need to take the feelings out and talk about it from a governance standpoint, a legal standpoint. It's a legal document, and then from an educational, how does it best serve?
And I will say, the consultants do have experience dealing with a similar situation where the towns were very resistant to the idea of giving the
True
school,
region.
turning it into a governance document.
Correct.
As opposed to a management document. and we should hear them out, so.
Yep. I think we should.
Do we need a motion to move forward with the consultant?
Are we
Well,
gonna
motion to have them come and
We're going
present,
have them present, is your,
Add them to the agenda.
Do
add them to the,
or do we need a motion?
for that, do we?
we don't need a motion for
Okay.
that. So we can put them on a agenda when they're available to come to one of our meetings and
Okay.
present to us.
And I will send out letters to the members. We need to get
And
the Board of
certainly,
Selectmen from Millville
yes, we do.
on this.
And certainly, whatever time that group comes to present, it would be great to have the members present. So we can approve the whole group as our group, or we can wait and say pending Millville, or we can wait till we have a Millville.
Let's go ahead and approve. Let's approve the group.
Approve it and add Millville
we
ones
add.
they have.
Okay? So I'll entertain a motion to approve the Regional Agreement Amendment Committee, composed of a member of the Board of Selectmen, Dan Keefe from Blackstone, a member to be announced from the Board of Selectmen from Millville, a member of the Finance Committee, Mary Bolso, from Blackstone, a member of the Finance Committee, Adrian Pettit from Millville, Sarah as our chair, Tara as our school committee member, Jason and Matt as administrative members, and, oh my gosh, Pam Maloney and Mary Beth Haynes as the representatives from Millville, and Lori Takalo, I don't know, I apologize if you're listening and I'm saying your name, and Mike Buckley from Blackstone. So I'll entertain that group, motion to approve that group.
So moved. Can I do it?
Yep, is there a second?
Second.
So moved by Sarah, seconded by Tammy. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I will attend as available. All right, anything else?
Nope.
Nope. Turn it over to you.
Great, thanks. Good evening, everybody. We are here this evening to talk about the kind of next phase of work in our FY20 budget. When we last presented, we were looking at a modified number of about 25.3 million. We referred to that as our working number because we are still working with our principals and our cost center managers to continue to look and find a way to create a phased-in model that would address our district improvement strategy, but would also allow us as a community, as a larger community over time, to build back and to build in what is necessary to really address the 4 areas of our district improvement: curriculum instruction, the whole child, and the community. So what we're going to do this evening is I'm going to kick this over to Matt in just a minute. But we're going to walk through essentially how we got from 25.3 to where we are this evening. We're going to talk a little bit about the specific kind of bucket, if you will, of items that we are proposing reductions to the committee. We will review what is in this phase 1 of this recommended number this evening, and we will discuss what's not. So that will be followed by the phase 2 items and talk a little bit about next steps. But I know the point of tonight is to put forward some recommendations to the committee. But of course, we understand that ultimately it's the committee's decision on what, where we want to put our resources in this. So we would certainly love and anticipate a super rich dialogue as we go through the information this evening. From there, we're going to take a look at a couple of other documents. One that has the FY20 modified budget with the number that we're going to talk about this evening and what that actually looks like in terms of the function codes in each area, comparing the level services FY20 level services to the FY20 modified, which is the number we have before you this evening, and the percent change in each. And then we're going to look at the actual impact from the state, impact on the communities, and then the breakdown into the larger function codes to see where we're actually putting our resources. Again, this is all just in draft mode, and we know that it's a workshop setting to take a look at and get feedback and take it from there.
Okay.
So with that, we'll kick it over to Matt.
Sure. Thank you. In case people haven't noticed the little PowerPoint presentation that's printed, it turns like a book. It's a little confusing because of the way that it's printed, so if you just flip them, they'll go smoothly. So, as Dr. DeFalco mentioned, the budget status of where we were versus where we are. We were at a modified budget of $25,351,754. We have combed it down to the number that you see before you, which is $24,796,893. How we got there? We worked with school building leadership, cost center leaders, and Dr. DeFalco and I looked at the budget very closely, and there was a redistribution of existing staff, therefore eliminating some need for the additional staff that we had budgeted for. We had a strategic replacement of retiring and non-returning staff, so taking into consideration the cost savings that we would accumulate from those. We reorganized the special education department to provide more closely tuned services to what it is that our students need. We worked with the school leaders, as I mentioned, to prioritize the needed materials and supplies. And they did a tremendous job. I have to commend all of the building principals for really taking a fine tooth to each one of their budgets and going through down to, like we were saying, we couldn't really tell the amount of glue sticks that they needed, but they went and did an assessment of how many glue sticks they needed. So they really went down to that fine line detail. So kudos to them. And then we took a hard look at the stipend positions that we have in the district, and we're going to be making some recommendations for adjustments to those. We reassessed the use of some of the technological resources that we had budgeted for, partly deciding to hold back as we further develop curriculum and decide whether or not we want to look more closely at materials that are more attuned to what it is that we develop in the curriculum. So maybe more of a pause on that place. Then we worked with custodial staff to prioritize the needs and eliminate excess. And I have to say once again, I met with the head custodians and we reviewed all of their needs and all of what they asked for the buildings, and they did a terrific job of combing through, seeing what they could go without, seeing what they desperately needed, and they reduced a tremendous amount from the budget. I know that we went through that as a school committee and reduced a number of the larger ask items for facilities and grounds, but they went down to the nitty-gritty, the cleaning supplies, the equipment that they could go without, someone maybe using a snow blower with a rope.
Oh, no.
But they went through and really
Shoelace,
shaved off.
I believe it was a
I
shoelace
think it was a string.
or a string.
String. Yes.
Yeah.
So we're not replacing the snowboard.
No. However, that will be in the next phase. So that brings us to where we are. Some of the reductions as outlined on page 5. Here, through the strategic redistribution of staff, we eliminated $268,200 from the budget. That's from shifting positions, reorganizing the special education department, and that was from, again, replacement of retirees and non-returning. And this includes, so this number includes the total of adjustments to regular education teachers, special education teachers, and paraprofessionals. You will see in the function codes, you can see the delta there more specifically, but this is a larger bucket picture.
Okay.
The reduction of out-of-district costs, you can see that through better serving the needs of our students, we anticipate bringing back students that are currently out of district. And this goes hand in hand with some of the realignment that we've been doing with the special education services. And by doing so, we anticipate bringing back $100,000.
Do you want questions now, or do you want to get through it?
Maybe we should get through this piece.
Get through
and
the
then- Yeah, because
presentation piece, and then we can certainly
Okay.
field all
Go
the
ahead.
questions. So, as mentioned, the reduction of supplies. This included remediation resources, such as some of the foundation's supplies. This was some equipment reductions, as you can see, engineering kits. I was very sad to see the oscilloscope go, but it was removed. And also a significant amount of art supplies and general supplies, office supplies. That total resulted in about $67,000 of savings from the building-based supply level. After looking at the stipends, Dr. DeFalco and I reviewed them. We reviewed them with the building principals and looked at how we were meeting the needs of the students and whether or not we could forego some of these positions. And we've decided that we're going to try to implement a $50,000 decrease to our stipends. We also reduced, as I mentioned, the technology by about $44,000. We eliminated the Discovery Ed program, which is K-12. We eliminated IXL, and we eliminated the Learning A to Z, which is a remediation program. And for the reduction of grounds materials, we came out with about $43,000 in savings. Snow blowers, vacuums, hand dryers. I met with Willie and we went over the needs of the fields and trying to separate, get the fields on different cycles of treatments and lime and painting. So we were able to eliminate some more of that funding, and then just trying to minimize the amount of repairs that they had scheduled for, such as clocks and fixing toilets.
And can I just jump into
Yes.
that, if you don't mind? So a couple, just very quick things. I think one of the key pieces here is seeing the word reduction, not elimination. So what we were striving to do in this phase one, which we're taking very seriously, and I would be so bold to say we are going to hold folks to that. We are. We're going to hold folks to that. This idea of having a phase one, a phase two, a phase three, and that's what we've heard repeatedly from both of the communities. So I think as we continue to become a district of one and work together and build those relationships with one another, I do think it's important to put out there that we will be coming forward with FY21 and be developing that in terms of the needs very soon once this process is done, because we need to make sure that the next round of what we need to get our district improvement strategy in place is in place. So you will notice with that the term reduction is here, not elimination. So we are trying to figure out how do we, work with the requests that are being made from our cost center managers, principals, from the needs of our buildings and district, but also very much respect and work side by side with the towns to do something that's feasible. So we didn't eliminate straight lines of things as opposed to trying to reduce down. If we can't have all the intervention materials that we need, let's start with one or two pieces and get really good with those one or two pieces and then roll in the next fiscal year. So I just wanted to underscore that, Matt, because none of this was easy to do by any sense, but we are trying to have that phased collaborative kind of approach.
Absolutely, and to the same point of having it be collaborative, I heard from all of the principals, cost center leaders, and the custodians that they were extremely grateful of the way that we were handling the budget cuts. Many people told me in the past that they were just given numbers and said, cut this amount. And they were said, we're reducing your budget by X percentage. that is not how we did this. We worked directly with the individuals, and we asked what the needs were, and we went through their needs with them so that they could make the appropriate accommodations where we needed to. So,
Do we want to pause on this and
Sure.
open to, on this piece, or do? I'm not sure.
Does anybody have a
Since you might
preference?
have a lot of questions
I
on this
do,
piece.
but I don't know.
Yeah, we should
Do you
do
have,
questions.
do questions? All right,
On this?
okay.
Okay.
So what questions do people have?
Is the reduction in technology resources, is this, all of these coming right from elementary?
They're K-12.
no, some of them are K-12.
And they are used K-12?
They are.
So, but when
So it's
you,
reduction, it's not completely gone?
well, that was my question. So what does reduction, so IXL will not be available in the district?
No.
That was $17,000.
It will not be,
That's at 17.
17,232.
Yep, 17,232.
but it will not be
We have
available.
something else that does.
at all.
what that would
Yes,
do.
so News ELA is what the principals opted for
Okay.
in place of that. They would rather use that as opposed to IXL. They also would rather use and look to use better, as they framed it, the intervention materials that come along with our core programs. So for instance, if you look at the Envision's math program, most of it, to be frank, is online. There's a ton of resources online that families can use at home, that kids can use, and they can use in the classroom. And I mean, we're not even scratching the surface of that. So I think the overall theme we heard from the principals was, these things would be great, but let's pick one or two, and let's get good at those, but let's also use better the core resources and materials that we have before we start.
So just back to that question, so is Discovery Ed K-12 completely gone?
Yes, those are eliminated.
These are, all three are
eliminated.
eliminated?
Yes.
It's called, we're calling it a reduction in technology resources, because while those are eliminated, we did leave other, like News ELA, we did leave some other interventions in there. Another example, tomorrow, we have a training with STAR again, working with our teachers and principals directly, not only to look at the assessment model or assessment product, but to look at the actual custom building assessment piece to it, and to look at all of the interventions and materials that come along with that, which we already have. So again, we're calling it a reduction, not an elimination, because we still will have intervention materials for the kids to use. Not exactly what we want, but we will have some.
And that you say the building leaders gave these three as things to cut. Did they get feedback from the interventionists as well, Jason?
I don't know who they spoke with
Okay.
on their end.
I'm
not
surprised
sure.
to see IXL on this
Me
list.
too, me too. Very
At least for the
surprised.
lower grades, 'cause
I know that it's a lot of money, but I'm a Brain Pop made the cut. I mean, is still in there, but IXL, I think IXL, in my experience of using it, and again, I don't know what people. That's why I asked if teachers had feedback, because I feel like Brain Pop is not as valuable as IXL.
So
But-
one of the things that came up with IXL, we asked that exact question. The worry was that IXL was being used perhaps a little bit differently than intended in terms of how it should be used, and more as a way to kind of plug something into an empty space on a schedule, as opposed to, you need focus on these three skills, let's put them onto these three skills, let's monitor and see how the kids are progressing with closing those particular gaps. The concern was that it was more of, I have a half an hour that I can fill for this kid, let me get him on this computer and have him work for 30 minutes.
So in other words, it
Understand that-
wasn't being used as an intervention, it was being used to supplement.
A schedule.
But I worry about the word intervention, because IXL does get harder and harder as the kids progress, and it is broken down by specific standards. So let's say you're doing volume, I only know this because I'm doing it now, but,
Yeah.
and the standard that you want them to focus on is EE12, and that's what you focus on. You tell them to go to EE12. You have, if the student gets it wrong, it gets easier. If the student gets it right, it gets more difficult. So you're not only giving interventions, but you're also challenging the students to another level. And I worry that some of these, and I agree with you, Tammy, Brain Pop is a lot of videos and information like that. And I just think if we're trying to reach all levels of children, I worry, especially at the elementary, not so much the high school. I guess there's other programs that I may not be aware of, but I have to agree with Tammy on that one, specifically that one. The other ones, you know, I get, and I think Newsella is a great transition. It's nonfiction, it's specific, it's very specific to the goals that are set for what you're doing right now. But I believe IXL, you can cut and only get math, or only get, you know, so I think there can be more investigation a little bit on that. And I don't know what the investigation would be, but I do worry a little bit about that specific one.
Brain Pop is not on, Brain Pop was cut, so I'm not sure, I was just saying to Matt, I'm not sure why it's not on this list.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, so
So
that is
this
out.
list, this list is not all-inclusive. It was a summary of,
The larger item.
But, you know, one of the
Larger
things I
items.
did speak with the elementary principal specifically about today was pulling a usage report, which we can go back and do. That was another question that we had kind of processed with the principals was, if we have these different intervention tools and resources, to what degree are they being used? And not just, so the example you gave would be the ideal situation. I don't know that it's always used like that.
And I also wonder, are we cutting, and I don't need to bring this ahead of time, but the instructional leaders that you have coming in or that are in the budget?
The two coaches?
The two coaches, sorry.
Yes.
I don't know, they're different, but
No,
the-
we didn't recommend a cut to them. We
Okay,
reorganized
so, and that
for
would be
those
my
two.
question, because I'd be okay with it, and they do the research, and next year you bring forward, okay, these are the programs that they're encouraging, you know, teachers to use. You know, that would be my difference, but until their feet are on the ground, how can we support the teachers that do use this to the best that they, you know, one teacher might use it the right way, and another teacher might use it as a filler. You know, how can
Or-
we support those teachers,
Or not at all,
or not at all?
right.
Correct.
And I will only speak to it as a parent. I appreciated the opportunity to have something that I could work with my child at home, and it also gave me a lesson when she was getting her lesson. So if I wasn't sure, you know, you press hint or whatever it is you
Yep.
press, and press video when you need the video or whatever. So from a parent perspective, and I understand that, you know, Envision's math or whatever math that may have the same kinds of resources and programs, but I remember going to a training for IXL. So if we're going to use something different, I think we have to train the parents as well.
Yeah,
Like, I think we have to
I feel
offer
like I
that.
haven't seen IXL though.
I don't think it was.
I don't.
I know in one
Oh.
of my son, only one of them, they called the company, and
Yeah.
the company gave them specifically just math for a trial. So one of my kids has it.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't.
you've
remember.
never seen it?
Eli, I feel like I might have seen it briefly in 5th grade that we got homework
We did
assigned.
it over the summer. It was
But
definitely-
again,
No, we used it
nope,
over the
even
summer.
with my 3rd grader, never.
Used to be homework all the time for ours.
But again, it depends, I guess
Probably
it
depending on the
depends.
school, too.
Yeah.
So what is the what is the cost?
$17,232.
But that's K to
You're not
12.
using it during the
Yeah,
day.
K-
And full subscription to anything, correct?
Yep.
So if you're gonna get Newsella, can we get a cost on maybe the math of it? You know, like a piece of it?
Sure.
And then do that analysis of the use. So if the use isn't K to 12, it might be K to
K to 6.
5 or
5
whatever.
Yeah,
You know, maybe we can
yep.
kind of come to a happy medium.
Elementary.
with
If I think they do by subscription number,
They do, because I'm
Yeah.
the only teacher
Yeah.
in my grade
Yeah.
that uses this specific program,
and you
so,
have to get a certain number, right? Yeah,
well, you buy it by number.
correct, yeah, I think so.
so for clarification also, some of these were reduced. There are still some subscriptions for Learning A to Z, and there's also other programs that we're using for remediation, like Read Naturally. That was assessed highly, and we are keeping that. We also still have the virtual high school and virtual middle school seats. So there are things.
Additional ones.
Yes.
Yeah, they were
50
reduced.
total.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so there were, and again, as Dr. DeFalco mentioned, News ELA is in there as well. So
Yeah.
it wasn't a complete
Naviance
elimination
is
of
in or out?
everything. Naviance is there.
Is in.
Is in.
I would like to echo Wendy, though. I really would like to see us
Oh, absolutely.
look back into
Or
IXL.
into who's using it.
Like, yeah.
Yes, why don't we pull the
and,
usage report
You
and see
know,
what that.
and see, you know,
Yeah.
maybe there's a minimum subscription and maybe just math. We certainly have a lot of reading.
I mean, if there's,
So, just
we do
math.
have a lot of reading
Yeah.
stuff, but I'm thinking math.
That's
and
what I'm thinking too, math.
It's not always intervention, it's also enrichment.
Enrichment.
Enrichment,
And
homework
I
help.
think we're lacking in that, I honestly do, and I think, you know, if the teachers are using it in the best way that they can, and you pull a usage, the data, and you see a specific teacher, and you go to them and say, will you still use it? And they say yes, I don't see why we shouldn't support the teachers that are using it. I mean,
The interesting piece will be to see how STAR is either similar to this or not.
Right.
So tomorrow we have the training around the actual intervention materials.
Yeah.
And so if that's the case, and if it does that same level, and there's an ability to do a custom build for a particular, quiz on a particular skill set within math or literacy, and then the intervention materials and resources are built right into that, it will be good to look and compare to see if we can get 2 bites of that apple or not.
I would be
Yeah.
interested
Yeah.
in that.
And that, and also what has the ability to go home?
I was just gonna say that.
What has the ability to reach the home? And I get that not every parent has access to technology at home at an elementary level, or not everyone will open the book, but there are many who are trying to learn this themselves.
Right.
So I think if they have the ability to, if whatever it is, if it's the Envisions, if it's the STAR, if it's the whatever, if it has the ability to go home and we have the ability to teach people how it goes home, I think those are important pieces.
And I think with respect to the current usage, it's unfortunately, we don't have coaches in position at this point, because the other, forethought I have is that when you do get coaches in, they can, and they will, sort of teach teachers how to use some of these resources more, better, more consistently. And so if you don't have that resource to use, then what? And I just want to say, we appreciate that you came up with these cuts, and I hate this part where we're like trying to talk us out of them.
Yeah,
It's always
I
very
know, I get it.
uncomfortable.
it's tricky.
So,
And I think it's necessary. I definitely think
Yep.
the readjustment to Newsell is important. I think all of it's important. I just worry that cutting something like IXL so quickly, before we get the, what are they called again?
The usage report?
No, the
Oh.
team.
Coaches.
Coaches?
Coaches.
Before we get them in, I just wouldn't want to do that in the area of math. If Newsell is coming in, then that takes care of the reading, but,
all set?
yep.
Anybody else want to talk about reduction to technology resources? I'm going to go up to number 1. No, actually not number 1.
Can I
No.
just ask one more
Yeah.
question on that? The second and third grade Chromebooks, I know that's a grant
That's a
that you were
Yes,
chasing.
we're just waiting to.
Okay,
it's-
still waiting, okay.
Yes.
That has nothing to do with this
No.
stuff? Okay.
And actually, we are hopeful, yes, we are hopeful we'll be able to use those to augment some of the reductions in the level libraries. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Chromebooks, right?
The tablets.
Tablets,
Just
oh, they're
to-
going to be tablets.
They're going to be tablets, just for clarification.
Yep.
Are we moving the tablets at the middle school and high school, or are those staying Chromebooks?
Those are Chrome.
Those are Chromebooks. The tablets are just for the reading, for the literacy.
Okay.
It's a
It's like
special
so the
program.
kids will feel like they've got like an e-reader.
Right, right, okay.
Yeah. Something a little bit different.
The anticipation of bringing back a student. What if we don't?
Or what if one other goes out?
Yes, no, we understand that as a possibility, but we are working
Diligently.
very hard to try and build a particular structure and program that will allow us to be able to do that and/or retain kids that would otherwise go out.
Okay.
We have made it a goal that we have to really start,
Building our own capacity.
yeah, and putting these programs in true programs in district. And so we have to start, we have to set a target, and we have to start somewhere. We've got to start this work somewhere. And just when you look at that number, 100,000, I know that's a large number to a certain extent, but that's 2 kids.
It's really,
Right.
I was just going to say.
And that,
if
that's
that,
not even
right?
It's a
including the
half a kid sometimes, depending on where they're going.
So, at the end of the day, Jill is working very hard to try to get this in place.
I would also mention that as we get a little later into the presentation, there's more information that will show
Show that.
we're still allocating funds in this proposed budget to out of district.
Well,
Probably
Because
much more
we're already,
appropriate.
we're off on that number in our
right
current
now,
budget.
Correct.
right.
Yes.
And unfortunately, this is the story that we've heard for 2 years, that we were going to build our capacity and that we were going to be great and we're going to bring out-of-district people back. But then it was, they have the right
can
to
stay put.
stay and they can stay and they can keep staying and then we're going to, so it's hard for us to count on that number. It's a little scary to count on that number, I won't lie.
Sure.
And it's not, I mean, and with all due respect to Jill, I know the world, and I know
Yep,
that you
yep.
have very little control of lots of things in that world, but to hang your hat on that, it's hard. And that's
Yeah.
it's a small number in the special ed world, but it's a big number as we
In
go
this
through
one,
this line
right.
item.
And I don't disagree with what the committee's saying. I think,
Yeah.
but I think from our perspective, if we don't set a target, it's never going to happen.
Gotcha.
So it's, we have to set some target, and we have to start this work of in-district program development somewhere. And if we don't, what gets monitored gets done. I can't think of another way to say it. So if we don't monitor it, we don't set a target for it, we don't set an expectation, I don't see it moving. And that isn't
Agreed.
anything other than just
Agreed.
priority,
No,
you know?
agreed.
And it's planning and plans. It's
Yeah.
not just, we're gonna just hire a teacher and.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
planning, it's plans, it's investigation, it's making
Mm-hmm.
sure what kids need, and to actually have a program in place, not just a teacher in a classroom.
There you go.
That's not going to work.
You've
Right.
heard,
It
you've heard
hasn't
that.
worked.
Correct.
It hasn't worked. We've proven that it doesn't work.
Yes.
Now we need to prove what can
Experiment
work.
has been done.
Yeah. The reduction of stipends by $50,000.
Can you go
That
back
is
to-
stipends,
Is that contractual
You
stipends?
missed the plots.
what? Yeah, did anybody have anything on supplies?
Yes, I have, would like to see that whole number stay. I think that's everything we talked about,
Keeping our kids.
keeping our kids here for their electives and, for the minimum we already have, that we don't have in the high school. Foundations, I'd like to hear why we think we can do without
Funding.
the.
So that was a
resources.
reduction of the foundation, so that not every teacher will have a kit. Instead, we'll have, I think it was an additional kit or something by grade level, if I remember
believe so.
correctly. Yeah. So it wasn't the
Already have all
elimination
the
of.
materials, though, anyway,
Yes.
right?
Right.
So are you replenishing any that need to be replenished still?
Yeah.
I also want to Erin's sentiment, a lot of the equipment, the principals went through and pared back. So there were engineering kits that we might have had 20 for a classroom, and maybe we got 15 or 10.
What about the
Similar-
cameras? 'Cause
We
I
went from
think they
4 to
were-
1, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
Yep. So it's like they weren't complete eliminations, but it was
It was a
Reduction.
paring back.
it was a reduction of.
So we're not going without any of so the numbers we had for these supplies were for more than one? When we talked about them
Yep.
that night,
cameras-
late night, the cameras, we were,
There were 4. Yeah. So when we went back and met with the principals and the cost center managers, we said, well, if we can't get 4 of them, what would work? Well, we could work with 2, or we could work with 1, or.
So I just happened to literally turn to that page. So the Sony camcorder there was one, and that was eliminated. But there are still Sony NFP and NPF 970 battery packs, and there are still V5 classroom starter kits that are in that equipment line, and there are still
There is a camera in that line.
There's a
because
camera
we
in that
couldn't do
line
both
as well.
Sets of cameras. And we had that conversation here at some point. If we can't,
Yep.
And they have a camera. They were looking to upgrade.
They were
their
upgrading.
camera. Will that be part of the next phase,
I
perhaps?
know they got a new microphone. we have, I mean, we do have the itemized lists if people want to.
I think this is an area that we could, if we explore some grant opportunities or some partnerships with community. I mean, you know, we joked when we went through this that some of our members probably have some of these things sitting in their
Cardstocks.
garage and Amazon boxes. But I do think, you know, we've already seen one of the teachers put out the group sharing or whatever we call the fundraising for the
Donors choose.
tablets, and that was filled pretty
3
quickly.
of them have been out there right now, and I think have gotten filled.
So I'm wondering if we can work with Mr. Gaudet on the is that who does the camera
Yes.
stuff? Yeah. To see if maybe we can get some grant types of things for that stuff. In the meantime, keeping it in our
Or-
prospects for
right.
phase 2 to expand that, but in the meantime,
Or-
is there something that we can get in either through donation or, like I said, I
Well,
mean,
or
a
there,
lot of
you know,
us have
I mean,
things.
every August, the list goes out of, you know, supplies for school, and maybe there's a little note on the bottom that says, you know, not for your child's classroom, but if you are willing, here are some school needs, or here are some district needs, or, I mean, you know, it'll seem weird for some people to see a camera on there, and I'm sure you'll get negative comments, but
The Canon EOS Rebel T6i
there?
DSLR camera
it's still there.
Who is that for?
is still there. That one camera,
Because that's oddly under the,
that one camera was $550.
okay, so the Canon EOS Rebel, that's what you just said?
Yep.
Yep.
It says body only, I don't know. It was 1647 on the original.
That was for 3.
3 or 4?
Or
Three.
Three, because
And
it's
then the-
500 and some odd.
five,
Yeah.
Camp-
yeah,
So that line is reduced to
500.
549.
549. And,
And just, so we do have the
Yeah,
updated,
we can-
with the recommendations built in. We just got the sense after the last one that maybe,
That was a
you know,
little
we didn't
painful.
want
It
to.
was a
Go
lot.
line by line
Yeah.
by line.
But it is available for anybody who wants.
so then there was this, you said the camcorders, the Sony
It's
camcorder
out.
for 3,000. That was for one, and it's zeroed?
The camcorder, yep. I don't know how many that was, I can't speak to how many that was for.
But it's zero.
That's on 54, but it was 0. I believe that was 1.
And then the
Yes, that was
V5 classroom starter kits, you said,
Yep, we have those.
They went to 4,800. V5 Smart Motor is still there for the starter kits, the $700. Again, we certainly can provide this package with all of the individual line expenditures.
Anyone else with supplies?
It does seem that that is a true reduction, where I feel like the technology said reduction, but technology seemed to like really cut, where this is like
Reduced.
one camera instead of 3, like, yeah, that's all right, you know.
Yeah, and I guess by tech, I guess perhaps if it would have helped, maybe we could have
Reduction of the total
said,
package.
here's what we
Yep.
eliminated, and here's what we were doing. I
What
mean,
we
we were trying
replaced.
to,
Right.
Yeah, I
You
know
know.
you're trying to streamline, I mean, there's only
Yeah.
so much information you can give. But like, so
happy
for
to look at
the,
that moving forward.
not to jump ahead, but on the reduction of ground materials, I think we were looking for 3 or 4 vacuums. Is one new vacuum going to see the light of day in the middle school? You know, is that a true reduction?
Okay, I'm going to stop you there
Oh,
because
sorry.
you jumped ahead.
I'm sorry. I thought we already skipped the other 2.
No, because I
Oh,
started.
because you want to go to stipends.
I
I'm
do want to
sorry.
go to stipends.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. So the reduction of $50,000, is that going to go back to each of the areas, including athletics and music, and say, reduce X from
Yes.
your area?
is it just music
Or-
and athletics?
Nope.
No, it's all of them.
It's all
But
of
how are
them.
you going to decide, you reduce Or are we reducing?
Well, so we had a discussion with the music director and the athletics director about this already. They, if you remember from their budget workshops in January or February, whenever they were, they did quite a bit of work on forecasting the number of programs and kids and all of that,
Players, yeah.
and the ones that were kind of on their watch list. So they have already put forward recommendations to a couple that they think they could eliminate based on enrollment or interest or whatever, however we want to frame that. So there'll be some, but I don't see the reductions in music and athletics being significant at all. I see those being based on enrollment.
But those are reductions from what we spent this year. So if we didn't,
Yep.
so if something wasn't funded this year, it's still not funded for next, or can somebody add one and take away two?
I think,
I don't know.
yep.
You know
they
what I
have-
mean?
I do. They're going to have to, so for instance, when we sit down and once this is finalized, and say the number is, the committee decides on 40,000 or whatever that number is, or 80,000, whatever direction we go in with this, or then we will sit down and meet with each of the principals. Again, they've already put recommendations forward. Each of the athletic and music, our band director, again, because they have put recommendations forward. So everybody already has a kind of preliminary chunk of what they're thinking would work. I think it's important to note that last year on stipends for folks that work in our district, so just Unit A members that work in our district, we spent another $150,000 on stipends. Those are just individuals in our district. So I keep saying in our district because we know we have teacher X, I'll pick on Wendy from Franklin, that coaches sport Y for us. That's not included in this, in that $150,000. So we, through conversations with, again, the principals and the cost center managers that oversee a lot of this work, will be able to do some level of reduction overall in here. Now, Jane, to your question, does it mean that if we had two clubs eliminated, can we bring one of them back? Or if we had one eliminated last year, can we add a club and bring one of them back? If we're within the confines of the budget,
The reduced 50,000.
those are decisions that I want the principals and teachers and the directors to make. We certainly don't want to tell them, you can't have this club, but you can have that club. I mean, we want to work with the dollar amount and then let the decisions be made at the building level to work within those confines.
So $150,000 in stipends for Unit A for people who work in our district. But and I'm picking on, Wendy's not here, so it's okay. But if Wendy comes and she's a coach, we're still paying her.
Oh, sure, they just weren't in
we
that
said-
number, that's all.
correct.
That's the
So,
number that
but
we...
that could be, a reduction could be a person who's,
Oh,
a
absolutely.
stipend of somebody who hadn't previously worked here as well, right? Yes.
We're just looking at reducing the amount. I'm
Total
sharing
amount.
that.
The activity's gone. That does mean the activity's gone.
Correct. Yep.
But I thought I understood your question, Jane, and maybe I misunderstood it. I thought you were asking, is the $50,000 staying within the function code where it's taken from,
It's going to be reduced from
the total budget?
the total stipend budget, not from one particular line or function code.
Right, so this sheet that we already, I'm sure this is jumping ahead, but this is,
But this already has 50,000
this already
out,
shows,
Yeah, the 50,000 reduction.
And
in
where
that.
was it
Point of
reduced from?
information,
Yeah.
just to throw in.
Yeah, Matt,
We
what
spent,
that is.
well, I was just grabbing this number. We pay $56,869 to non-employee for stipends.
56,000?
56,000.
So we spent $90,000 on these enrichment
So,
activities.
for example, we have our varsity softball coach, our assistant high school marching band, our volleyball varsity, our JV girls basketball. That's not in the $150,000.
but that's
We pay
only,
another
that's for people that
$60,000.
apply for the jobs, because, so,
I think there's confusion. Let me see if I can take a stab at clarifying this. I only shared that number,
Right.
150, as an in-district cost to people that are working in our district because because we know there are people that work outside of the district that we are paying stipends to. Matt just got us that number. That's 56,000.
56,000.
So when you take the 56,000 that we are paying out-of-district
6,000.
folks, and you take the 150 we're paying in-district folks, we are paying in stipends for music, athletics, clubs, all of those activities, over $200,000. What we are proposing to the committee is to reduce that $200,000 by 50 grand.
Right, so I guess.
Is that, I don't know. does
That
clear
does
it?
help, yes, it helps, but I'm asking, where were those reductions? If you're looking at this sheet.
By function.
Where were they
Right, because-
taken out of?
Well, because when I hear the word stipend, I hear extracurricular activity, or any, and in that, if we're reducing it by 50,000, we're eliminating those activities for the kids.
Well, let me give an example of a stipend in our contract, right? And it's up to the school committee to.
Which one to fund.
Yes, right? So an AED battery checker. So we have a $2,000 stipend for somebody to check the batteries in our AEDs in our schools.
And we
I
pay
don't know that makes sense. I don't know
you're
we have
going
the
to
money
make
for
that someone's
I don't know we have the
responsibility?
money for that.
but
Somebody still needs to
I
do that.
agree.
Somebody has to do
On
it.
salary already.
Yes. It should be in somebody's
Job
job
description.
description. Should be
Right.
in someone's job description, and I agree completely. And we paid that $2,000 this year.
Yes.
Someone had that stipend.
1,700, whatever it
So
was.
if we eliminate that stipend, that comes out of what?
What function code, Jane?
Yes.
Give me one
Yeah. Matt can
moment,
look it up and
please.
find out.
Wouldn't it be
Because I
under
guess I'm,
It's salaries.
Would that be in a salary because it's a
It's
it's a person
yep.
who is paid by
So
the district?
those are coded by they're in 2305 as the function code, but the org code is 122. So we have,
okay. But is the 2305 where you took the $50,000 off of?
no.
You took it all over?
All over.
Well, so looking at this sheet,
So as
not
of
trying
right
to
now,
jump ahead
as of
again.
right now, so just for clarification, as of right now, the actual spaces are to be determined. As a placeholder to get these numbers, to print, to do the modified budget, I can
And
tell you.
administrators are going to pick
Yeah,
them.
I can tell you, they were split across athletics, music, and the regular 2305, 122.
So on this sheet, you have $3,000 missing from athletics and music. So it's more than the 50,000 in stipends. So there's maybe
Those were-
eliminating a stipend in
Yeah.
athletics is eliminating a whole season of something that
They-
that would be a cost.
They had put forward, if you remember after their meeting, we were tasked with going back to work with them.
Right, yes? you
And
were.
having them put forward.
Reductions.
Reduction recommendations and where they could reduce. And equipment, or, for instance, a piano. And we researched that piano ad nauseum, to be honest with you. We don't need it. We spoke directly with the teachers that are using the piano. But, so we did a lot of due diligence with the cost center managers, as did they. So what you're seeing there, Erin, is a combination of what they put forward, and then what Matt was just explaining was that 50,000 is spread over those 3 cost centers, so that we could get the bottom line number to work for our discussion. But when we go back, Matt and I were discussing today, he actually has some placeholders in key places that, once we make those final adjustments, those numbers will shift. Yeah.
If you're looking at the variances on the.
Does that make sense?
Yep,
Yes,
but
it does.
But
That
I
answers
can
my
see,
question.
Aaron, if you're looking at the variance on the function chart, which is what we'll get to, it was 20,000 in athletics, 20,000 in music, and 10,000 in regular curriculum-based stipends.
But it doesn't necessarily mean
No,
that
it
tennis
doesn't.
or some sport
I
is
can
going to
say,
be cut.
but I can say, off,
Just be,
off the cuff, my rationale for just plugging in those numbers, and again, those are not finalized numbers, a large amount of the music stipends, there was discussion about how much of that might be, again, put into job descriptions. The athletics program brings in twice as much money. There's twice as much expenditures on it. So between trying to allocate a lot of the music stipends to the actual positions and trying to cut some of the athletics and balance that with the regular stipends, I just threw in the 20, 20, and 10.
Fair enough.
Tammy,
Again, TBD.
I just want to touch back on something you said, because you used an example that may actually happen, but one of the recommendations was to monitor very closely the tennis numbers.
Right, for the boys,
yes.
I think. the
They're
boys'
not
tennis
running this
number.
season, just so, there's no boys tennis
And,
team.
yeah, and I think they are built in next year's budget too, was that the boys or girls, and I don't recall, but you
think
mentioned tennis
boys.
as
Girls
an
were
example, so I'm like,
practicing the other day,
I better
so
make sure to say that
There was-
Oh,
actually.
yeah, no, I only knew because when Jill,
Presented.
well, her last name's not Tosti, so I'm always trying to remember her new name, but that Jill, not that Jill, came, she said they didn't think they had the numbers, and I
Right.
hadn't seen anything, but I think it's just, I mean, I think what Erin is worried about, and which we all worry about, is that, you know, when we look at that stipend list, and it's, you know, how many pages long the stipend list is, I would much rather see someone take on the major responsibility of changing a battery than cut something that a kid gets to do. And I hope that that is the way we're going at the stipends.
We are with you
because-
100%.
Okay.
Do you know, and this is probably a really big question, but off the top of your head, with the number of stipends that you looked at, how many of those are battery changing
Yeah.
stipends? You know, that you're looking at in this, you know, breakdown?
That are
That should be put
based
some-
on like duties versus
Yeah.
working with kids.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't have those numbers, but we can absolutely
I'm
do
just
that.
curious because that number does speak
very
very
important.
different, but it speaks very differently than I think what Erin's feeling, and I echo that as well, is that we don't want to see it come from affecting the student.
Mm-hmm.
And with the number of stipends that you look at on a regular basis, if you were to go through them and say, this should be in this person's duty, or this should be, you know, aligned to this person's duty, you know, I think,
Yeah.
I think that's valid. I was just curious if there's.
There are a lot of 504 coordinator stipends that are in there. There are other services that are as stipends. So those are the types of things that we certainly will be going back and looking at whether or not they can be job responsibilities for individuals.
We are also, at some point, we will have that comprehensive list. So, you know, by all means, you know, it is, in the contract's very clear that, you know, the stipends are in there, but the committee, you know, has the ultimate decision on which ones are, you know,
Funded or not.
resourced, yeah, or not. So, you know, we're certainly going to be moving into that piece of the legwork to get that in place, but we agree with you that we've got to look at, we do not want to cut things for kids. So that, they're our top priority.
Grounds. Wanted grounds. Tammy wanted grounds.
I just asking if that, like, using the vacuum as an example, I think it
saw the
was 3
vacuum.
or 4.
I saw a vacuum at the high school. I didn't see.
Middle school has some vacuum requests.
I didn't see that in here offhand. I could get back to you with specifically what.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you need a vacuum, you need a vacuum. I mean, if you're
Yeah.
asking for 3, maybe you cut to 1, but again, that may be
and
one
actually,
of those things that we
so-
say, hey, look in your basement, do you have a vacuum that's newer
So
than
I can
what
tell
this
you.
middle school has?
Actually, I can
It's
tell
not
you.
those kind of vacuums, though. Is it?
Specifically for the middle school, I communicated with Scott via email, and I can recall he sent me an email identifying his 2 lines where he had equipment and where he had services, and he specified these are the only places where I think we could cut. You could take some out of this line, which was for $6,000, and he said we could reduce that, and that was an equipment line, I think, so we reduced it to $3,000. Him still knowing what he wants to do with that, with those funds for specific pieces of equipment. And then there was another reduction for, he said in contract repairs, he could estimate if we did some work and held back on the contracts, we could save about $2,000 from that. So in total, from the middle school, I know there was like $5,000 in reductions. But I assume that not all of the vacuums were part of that. Because Scott recommended them himself.
And I just want to underscore something Tammy said in the beginning, which was, this is such an awkward process. I'm just going to say it for what it is, because we're defending cuts we don't want to make.
Yeah.
Right.
So I just want to be really forward about that. We don't want to do any of these things.
Right.
But we also are trying to do what,
Get to
so I appreciate Tammy
Get a
saying that
reasonable
up front.
number for
So, yeah,
both
the
towns.
middle school, I think Erin just
There was
pointed out, were three vacuums for
It looks like the high school had
$1,194.
one Versamatic, I don't know what the difference
In
is.
some batteries.
Can you
for
tell
the
me
floor.
where
It was on this little
It's
breakdown.
on their
that
thing that
she-
they-
This is what they asked for when they
Oh,
presented.
okay.
I was just looking
So
at
you may have reduced it when you gave it to us the first go-round, actually.
We may
He
have,
said
we
three-
may have cut it the
Yeah.
first go around.
This had 3 vacuums at $11.94, and then the high school was $6.50 for, I think, one.
Again, again, this isn't something that, we're taking technically from the kids, but appearance matters. You want to be proud of your building, I think, and we hear from the teachers here and there about, certain things, environmental factors, and if you can't vacuum up the crumbs from the floor and therefore get ants, then you have a bigger problem. So, we just want to make sure that we're not cutting things that we actually truly need
I
to make
100%
us
understand.
And I would say that about our string
snow blower.
No
Say
blower.
that about, how are
So,
we going to minimize
The high
toilet
school
repair?
tractor, the John Deere for $60,000, was that already taken out?
Yes.
Yes, the first.
And I can say that that was taken out
Or
very,
modified.
so again, that was confidently taken out because I just paid $3,000 to have that tractor repaired.
And we met with the gentleman who repaired the actual tractor, and he said very clearly that
It will last.
It will last.
running great.
Yeah. So, and again, to the point of, we want to keep things that we need, and we certainly don't want our buildings to be despicable and look unpresentable or be unhealthy for the kids. And that's where, through the process that, Jason and I went through, as painful as it was for us to ask, we went and asked the individuals what they could forego, so as to make sure that we were not eliminating anything that was really a necessity to them. And that's how we came to these numbers. And we did the same thing to the principals. For the duration of, or from the start of the school year, we've said to all of the principals and the cost center leaders, we do not want to come to you and talk about what we're going to try to eliminate. We do not want you thinking about budget. We want you focused on children, and instruction, and what we can add. But we got to this point where we said, we need a little help,
Right.
because we can't make these decisions for you, and that's when they jumped
And
in.
I appreciate that you didn't just go to the principals for ground stuff, that you went to the custodians. Because I think that there are staff in our district who feel, rightly or wrongly, that they're not always asked. So I appreciate that extra step went above and beyond to ask the group.
And I would ask at the end of this process if we could have a list of the equipment we're looking for in Phase 2, so that we can kind of
Sure.
look at, because I don't know if anybody else gets them, but I do, get emails, like the grant kind of things, and I know that stuff doesn't really always fall under it, but I think there are opportunities for community-based things that we
Well, think
might
about
be
the
able
safety
to follow
stuff.
up. Right.
Like, I mean, we're putting together tens of thousands of dollars worth and resources to harden our buildings for safety hardening. Like, that's huge. So, yeah, I mean, things do come along like that. I think that's a good point. And we certainly have the items we know we need in the second, phase of this work, so it won't be a hugely significant lift to get that together.
Okay.
Any other questions or concerns? We'll let Matt keep going? Okay.
I'm happy to stay paused.
Go ahead. We'll flip the page.
Phase 1. So as we've stated already, what is in the current modified budget, we still have 2 additional classroom teachers.
And can you pause right
Yeah.
there? Sorry, 1 second. We will explain how we went from 4 to 3 to 2. We're not reducing the actual the kind of the new pieces we need to add, we've just realigned. So just, if any of you are saying, oh, what the heck happened to the last number, we'll get into that.
Sure. Again, through the reorganizations that we went through, we are keeping 2 instructional coaches as part of this modified budget. There is still money for the literacy curriculum development and for some additional resources. And we still have some funds for leveled library materials, and the Wilson Reading Services and intervention materials are still part of that. So again, when we talk about foundations or where are we cutting for remediation, we are not necessarily just blanket cutting for things, we're focusing on specific programs and plans.
And Wilson is still in at 40 for the full amount.
It is 40,
It
okay.
is, but I do have, depending on which way folks want to move, the Blackstone Valley Superintendent Group jumped right on this. So if we need to kind of expense out 5 seats, I do not see that being an issue whatsoever. If we want to fill them with 10 of our own folks, and we left the 40,000 in the budget. So that will be a decision that, you all will need to kind of come to, but we have both avenues ready.
Okay. And leveled library materials, is that in the
Any
libraries
comments on that
or
part?
that in the reading rooms?
I think this side of the table's on.
Those are the reading rooms. Those are the
Those are
level,
reading
yes, for the
rooms.
reading rooms,
Yes.
yep.
Say, train learning people.
So you have 10 teachers for that 40,000?
Well, 10 seats.
10 seats.
10 seats. And we discussed whether or not, there was a little bit of back and forth.
Initially, it was
It was 5, and we said we wanted them all.
5 seats.
But you got to buy it in, Wendy, you have to buy it in a class of 10.
Right.
So it's the 41,000 some odd, Jill.
We originally wanted 1 per grade. We originally wanted more.
One
We
per
wanted
building.
more. No, 1 per class, right?
No.
1 per, we
It's
wanted
a-
more than 10.
We were getting 5, no, we were getting 5. We
Yeah.
wanted
One per
10.
building.
10 is the number for 40,000.
Correct.
Right,
10 is 1 per grade,
1 per,
right?
10 would be
2
2 per
buildings?
building.
2 per building.
5 would be 1 per building.
Oh, at the middle school and high school, too?
Yep. Until we get that core piece, yeah.
And the thought was, is we were going in the direction of 10, whether it was half this year, teacher training, teacher, or maybe not, I shouldn't say that.
Yeah, it's a year-long
training.
training. And so the question was,
Expensive, too.
yeah, the question was, do we want to invest the 40,000 and train 10 of our staff, 2 in each building? For a lot of different reasons, there's benefit to that, obviously. And if not, we would have to budget for 20,000. But that would mean we would need to expense out 5 of those seats to other districts in our region, of which we had four districts jump on without hesitation.
Yeah.
Because they've been needing to, as they've said, we've needed to do this for years, and we just can't afford it. So we'll-
Everybody's paying their outside tutors.
Yep.
So, it won't be a problem
To
to
get 10
parse
people.
out 5
yeah.
seats if we need to.
I just, my concern, I expressed it before when we talked about this. I think if you only have 1 per building, and that one person who's now trained is very lucrative to some other place, or, and then you have none in that building. And we trained people before, it may have been a long time ago, I don't remember, but I know we have done it, and we probably have, what, 2 Wilson?
I honestly don't know.
We train for foundations.
I don't think we ever
believe
have.
we've done this.
Yes, no, I know we have.
Wilson,
I know we
I think
have.
teachers have paid for it on their own.
No, we
I've
did.
been trained
Yeah.
years, I've been here a long time. I think I was in one of the first group here at Blackstone. We had a large group that was trained. I think we've done it twice. I know I was in one of the groups. It was a very long time ago. And out of that original group, there might be 2,
Yeah.
maybe 3 left of us here.
And do you need to keep getting training to keep your certification? Or once you, the one you
Yep,
did
I'm
forever ago
trained.
is still
I am
good?
still, yep,
Yeah, once you-
level
yeah.
1, yep.
The-
Level 2
the-
never existed.
The challenge is you want to train your people. But then, when that tool goes in their toolbox, it makes them very marketable
Yep.
to go outside.
Yep.
It's not a reason
That
not
is
to
a
do it,
very.
though.
No,
that's
I
a
agree.
very-
It's
that's
not a reason not to do it.
Very,
And
very
it's, in my-
good tool to have in your
It's a
box.
reason to train the
We
right
need it.
people.
We left the money in at 40 for
Yeah,
10 of
can
our
we get-
It's a benefit.
But also know, including that 10, there's also an overview for 30 individuals. And I did have the discussion, although they won't be considered certified, that doesn't mean, because it's a very scripted program, it doesn't mean that those teachers couldn't take away that information and get started. As long as you have that expert in your building, those people would have a resource to go to.
We could utilize them to do the sessions. We just-
Isn't Foundations a piece of Wilson? Or it's
This
Wilson-
training is
it's
not,
a-
there's no foundations in this
No, but
training.
isn't the
Oh.
program itself, isn't Foundations, the
It's
program is
based
part
off
of,
of,
is
yeah.
based off of Wilson,
But
so,
it's not part of any of this training.
right.
Yeah,
I'm just,
yes.
Yeah, it's a,
it's
Offshoot.
cohesive. So if Foundations
Very
and Wilson
multisensory,
is
hands-on,
not Bradley and Wilson. And
correct. Yes.
So the people that are Bradley trained are going to make sure we're going to get them Wilson trained.
I don't even know.
I don't think
It's
I don't
just
think we
a,
have
we do,
that. We have Bradley trained people?
long time, ago. I mean.
I don't know that
Yeah, I
anyone's
don't-
using it.
I think right now what's happening in special education, we need to have that as part of our resources. 'cause it's
Absolutely,
not-
100%. And the hope is that you're pulling these groups that need the Wilson training, and
Correct.
somebody who's Wilson trained is is working with these particular,
Yes.
is an intervention block,
Right.
is an RTI block.
So I'm just curious why it's on this list and it says reduced amounts if we have it in here for the full.
Because there was so much discussion, we weren't sure where the
Where it
committee
would
ended up
go.
falling, so
Okay.
we left it at the full amount, but we put it on here for a discussion point.
Was that other intervention materials though? Because we also
Yeah.
talked about the math, and that was reduced.
It was
Yes,
reduced
the
amounts
math
to
was
the
reduced, but-
intervention materials.
But Wilson, we never came to a final.
Right.
We were recommending the full, 40,000, we left it in at that.
I would say if it's in tonight's new number,
And leave it.
Keep it in.
personally, I say keep
Is
it in.
is a full cohort of Wilson-trained teachers more valuable than IXL?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Good point.
There you go.
Sorry.
well, it's not apples to apples.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, it's not the
Totally,
same
Yeah.
price,
When I think about the
but,
cohort of
face to
kids you're
face,
working
like we could
with,
put-
your
And
Wilson,
the reach is,
okay.
your Wilson students are, like, the
think
kids that
IXL
need that
reaches
level of
further.
literacy instruction, at best can barely access IXL. These kids are tapping out, syllable.
Okay.
Yeah.
very specific.
Well, and I don't mean, I mean, just
so I,
not with the same kids, I mean, like, to the
You're
district.
talking 17,000.
Oh, no, I hear that.
That's what I mean.
I guess
Okay.
what I'm saying
Yeah.
is those are the students I worry that.
So-
Okay.
and
No, and it was an honest
No,
question,
that's a
because
great
I don't
question.
really know anything about Wilson or
No,
IXL.
that is a very good question.
so
I think, yeah.
IXL is a so a teacher can assign it to me, she can, or he or she can instruct me, but if I'm not vested in IXL, it can sit there and it can never be used.
Okay.
Whereas Wilson is a training tool that I am using as the actual teaching tool.
So you're sitting with 10, not even 5, let's say 5. You're sitting with 5 kids in front of you doing a very heavy, training on reading. And it's an intervention with kids and a person in front of them. So for those particular students, I would think that
And what
there's
would
a
be nice
necessity for
too,
that.
is having them in the buildings. We could potentially right now have, say, a second or third grade teacher who's using Wilson with a student.
Mm-hmm.
When they go on to the next grade and the next grade, there's not that consistency. Wilson's a program you're supposed to start and finish, because it's very specific.
Specific, yep.
The kind of student, the
Mm-hmm.
need that's there.
Foundations, too. What grade does Foundations go up to right now? Second or
We're
third?
using it in third.
Everybody?
No. But we will be.
Okay, great.
We are so different when we're.
No, it's just good, it's good, that's really good, bringing Wilson and Foundations together, because they are cohesive.
are
And when you
cohesive.
teach a child that's 6 years old, and I'm going to say it, a Bradley program, and then they go back into their classroom and they're doing Foundations, it does not work.
Right.
Yeah.
So I like the fact that there's cohesiveness. It's just the same thing. It's not that, it's just a program that was, it's old. But,
Okay, yeah.
it's just important to have that for a child.
Phonemic-based.
Continuity.
It's
is-
important, absolutely.
critical.
And there's also potential to have those, do summer programs with the Wilson training.
Right.
For people who need the summer follow-through, consistency for that. So there's potential to make.
Yep. That's a great point.
Any other thing on the phase 1
What is the literacy curriculum development?
So that's the process. So the committee will hear from the Science Curriculum Development Committee in April at the school committee meeting on the 10th. So this will be our group of K-12 teachers and principals that are working to rewrite our units of instruction for literacy with recommendations around how to strengthen the core literacy program that we have.
So the science will be
Science is
doing that.
now, we're going to hear from
Science is
them,
this
and then
year.
next year is literacy.
Oh, okay.
We had originally scheduled to do
Literacy and
math, and we had eliminated the math development for next year to phase it in for the future year. And that brings us right into what you will see in future years in the next phase. Again, we still intend to phase in 4 additional classroom teachers, both reducing the class sizes at the elementary levels and at the middle school, and increasing the high school offerings and making sure that we're maximizing time on learning. We will also be looking to introduce 2 additional instructional coaches so that we can fine-tune their practices to specific core areas, curriculum areas. Additional curriculum development and instructional resources. Again, we'll be moving forward with math curriculum development and purchasing instructional resources, hopefully for the ELA curriculum that we develop this coming year, and then math also. And additional, again, I know we still have the full bucket of Wilson.
We were sure, so we put it in
We
here.
put it in, and it doesn't refer just to Wilson interventions. We do want to continue to look at other optional interventions, some more math-based interventions as well. I know that Jill's doing some research on that she shared in the
We're going
past.
through some trials
Yeah.
right now.
Not struggles, but trials, meaning
Meaning,
pilot.
program trials.
Pilots.
I just want to clarify what Jill meant by trials. You said it with a very solemn, we're going through some trials right now.
For an intervention math program?
So we are lacking, we discussed this before, in some of our intervention tools in special education. So I reached out to, so far, 2 companies. I don't want to totally overwhelm our staff. And we're getting some pilots of 2 programs that we're going to be able to, look at. Well, I want our special education teachers, those who have the students pulling out, to really have a chance to try them with their students. So I have 2 right now that we're looking at.
So I just have 2 questions for that. One question is, are we continuing with Envisions? Because I know with our district, it's like, we're going to try something else. And then my second question is, is either of those companies a Pearson company that cohesive, like?
So Envisions I did contact, and there really aren't connections. It's a specific program. So what I'm looking at is the programs that are out there that are aligned with overall standards. Right now, we're looking at 2. One of them is totally an online program that has both instruction lessons and follow-up lessons. So we're trialing that one, and that's, all the way through the grades. And the other one we have has an online component for lessons, as well as a hands-on component. So we're going to be looking at 2 right now. I just want our teachers to be able to provide some more feedback. This is what we can trial, and I'm looking from them, too, to get their feedback, to also say anything else that's out there, because there are things out there, but the problem is that they're from different states. My first question is, I'm calling you from Massachusetts.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Meet our
So,
standards, yeah.
Yes, to have those. And some companies are growing, and I'm also able to say to them, could you please let me know other districts in Massachusetts that might be using this, so I could reach out to them to see, the pros and cons. So I feel start with a trial, because I want to make sure we're all on the same page, because that's part of the problem. I understand we need things that are a little bit different, but when every year a kid is consistently getting something different, we need some type of.
Right, that was the point of my question.
Yeah.
Is that, I know Pearson is MCAS, I know Pearson is Envisions, and I just worry that with our district has gone every day. We've just gone through this, and Envisions is a tool,
Right.
not a curriculum that could be followed from A to Z, so.
Well, these are so the thing is, we're looking at it as, once we identify, we have some students who are in pull-up, because say they're specifically having difficulty with
Right.
number sense, or they'll be able to target focus, target that instruction on those specific areas. Because sometimes I think what's happening now, and this is no fault to the teachers, if we're not giving them the tools, they're making them do with the best that they have. So if we're just taking what's going on in regular education, saying, let's just do it, we've talked about this before, a little bit slower, a little bit louder, that's not what we need.
Rephrase it.
Yes, it needs to be specialized. How can we really reach the kids? So that's what it focuses on. So we don't want to say we want to take the kids totally out of Envisions. They still need to have access to that, but in addition to that, do you know what I mean? How do we really focus on what their specific needs are? And these programs can offer that individualization within, do you know what I mean, that small group class, or during RTI or things like that. So we're going to trial them. We were able to get, instead of just 30 seats for the whole district, I was able to get 30 seats for every building.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Yep.
And to your question on Envisions, so math won't be up until, for 2 years. So, you know, depending upon what happens with the curriculum development in that, I mean, so we know at least next year and the year after. So at least the next 2 years, we know that's in place. And maybe beyond that, who knows? I mean, but we'll have to wait once the curriculum revision committee goes through. So that won't be changing.
I don't have any other questions.
So I do on the, what we'll see in the next phase. So again, leveled libraries, we're still talking about the reading rooms. So when are we going to, or will we ever address the needs of our libraries? These rooms we sit in and use as meeting rooms and have books from 1902.
Can I add to yours?
Yes,
When are we going to turn these into media centers?
or that's even better.
Was that, yeah, that was
That's
that
even
was going to be
better.
my response to Jane's question.
That's even better. But, you know, I guess, I'm hoping that's part of a plan in phase 2 at
Well-
least, or
well-
phase 3.
Most libraries have turned into media centers
Correct.
and maker spaces.
Yeah.
You know, and because your librarian or your media technology specialist, whatever the terminology, the correct terminology is really focused on the shift to STEAM, or STEM, you know, letting kids really tinker and explore. Of course, literacy is embedded in that, but, yeah. So we don't have a plan for that yet.
Okay. Phase 3.
Yet. But no,
would be
we are putting a makerspace through the hard work of BPO. Makerspace is going into the complex for next year.
At the library?
In there, yes, we're looking at that space. We're looking at other open classroom spaces too, but yeah.
And that's combined with the future facilities upgrades. Of course it is. So what you have on page 8 of the presentation, for those that like to know numbers, the page 8 of the presentation has the breakdown of the assessments of this new number and what the assessments would look like to each of the towns. So for Blackstone, you see the minimum local contribution still at $6,596,000. Exclusionary costs, which are just for transportation, of $1,146,000. These modifications lower their additional costs to $1,435,992, and their capital is $353,000, bringing their total to $9,531,976. And Millville, minimum local contribution of $2,178,000, exclusionary of $435,000, additional of $545,000, capital of $138,000, for a total of $3,297,000. And a couple of the other documents that I have really break apart those assessments. Are more for people that might be in the audience watching this on video that want to see, okay, how does this impact us and what are the percentages?
And how does it compare to?
How does
this
it compare
fiscal year?
to, how does it compare to our level services proposal, and how does it compare to what we just modified, you know? So again, the final page of our presentation is just where we are. That's the budget we're hoping to have your approval to make these recommended cuts to get to, and then move forward and bring that to the certification.
And the recommended priorities.
The,
reduction.
So,
I can do a brief overview of the PDF documents also. If there are any questions about the presentation, I'm happy to field them.
I don't have a question. I just want to point out, for mostly for viewers, that what was just presented to us reduces the amounts that were originally discussed at joint meetings and such, and clearly we're going to go forward and present, but with all of the work that you and Dr. DeFalco and all the administrators have done, just looking at these, from what we were handed when we were given this book to halfway through when we met with towns, it looks like our towns should actually be pleased with these numbers based on the numbers they've already seen. We're reducing the additional and exclusionary to Blackstone by another almost $650,000, and Millville's is almost $250,000 less than, where we started. So I hope that everyone sees the time and energy that went into that, just to dwindle those numbers down.
Sure. And actually, to that point, the first PDF that I would say to have a look at is the overview of the assessments. This document we brought forward beforehand, and it had some other numbers on it. Right now, you're looking at the FY19 budget, the level services budget, and what we're calling the further modified 20 budget. The further modified 20 budget goes down to $24,796,000. Grants and circuit breaker get taken out of that. And here again, so from a numbers perspective, thank you for that, Erin. This further modified budget, from our original modified budget, which was $25,353,000, we reduced $556,946. So almost $560,000 were reduced from our original modified budget. The delta to this new modified budget from our level services budget is only $117,960. So that's all above level services. If you scroll down,
Can I just?
sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I want to, when we stated that we were 100% committed to going line by line at every penny we have and looking to realign our existing money before asking for anything, this is what that looks like. So I want to state that number again, just for folks that see this at home. $117,960. Is that correct?
Yep.
Over level services.
906 or
I'm sorry.
960?
Hold on one second. It's $117,960 above the level services budget.
So here's the rubber on the road, if you will. And so this is not to the work that people have done, which I think is phenomenal. It is not to put anything against the commitment from the towns who have tried to really assess what we're doing here, but this grows our current budget by 3.43%, which is reasonable growth for a year, but it equates to 6% or more, a little over 6% for our towns, which over time is not sustainable. So there are laws out there being proposed, there are senators and congressmen and House of Representative people working on this, and we need to work with them, because this is not sustainable over time. This is what we need. It doesn't even meet what we need.
Yep.
Again, it's significant reductions. And I realize it's a phase 2, but something will come along next year that needs to be added to phase 2, and so I think we have done a yeoman's job. I think we are presenting a very reasonable number. There's a few things I'd like to add back in, but we'll get to that. But it's still taxing on our communities. And I don't know how because we need to do our due diligence and present a program and present a needs-based budget that moves our goals and our vision forward. That's our purpose for being here. We said it at the get-go, you've said it every time you've had the microphone in front of you. And we need to do that, and we believe that this does that. But it's a significant thing for our towns to support, both towns. So I think we have to, that's my message to the state.
We'll be there tomorrow.
There you go.
And MASC just released something tonight that talks
to-
about some requests and some initiatives
right
they're
along.
working on, which includes increasing per pupil spending by $100 each student. It was a lengthy list, actually, but I just happened to see it quickly before I came. So hopefully we can reach out to them to see what we can do as communities to support their efforts.
So I would like to shift to this final page, and I'd like to end with a couple of very poignant comments, or comments that I think are poignant. On this sheet, you can look at the modified budget broken down by function code and compared to the FY20 level services budget. So we have what is now our further modified budget and the level services budget. The level services budget, again, I just want to remind everyone, was built off of the existing FY19 budget with factors put in to provide those same services at next year's costs. If you flip over to the back page where you see the totals, we are saying that this further modified budget is only $117,960 over the level services budget. But as Tammy earlier mentioned, this level services budget is built on a budget that does not adequately fund our out-of-district costs. Our FY19 budget as it stands does not support what we have to pay for. So the question came up earlier, so is this modified, or what's this zero-based budget? Are you just taking the budget and then adding whatever you want? And the answer is no. The answer is the zero-based budget that we started with asked principals, asked cost center leaders to start with nothing and only add the things that they needed. And that is what we did. And then from there, we pared it back down to really the things that we needed. And one of the huge expenses of what we need is undeniably out-of-district costs. If you look at the bottom, it's highlighted in yellow. On the FY20 further modified budget, there's $2,338,000 for out-of-district expenses, and that does include transportation for out-of-district expenses. It also shows the breakdown of our in-district expenses. According to the level services budget, which is based on the numbers that we mistakenly proposed for this year and built off of with factors for how much they would cost for next year, that only allots $1,969,000 to out-of-district costs. That's a difference of $369,000 in out-of-district costs. So I did a small analysis below. If you actually split the FY20 level services budget by the in-district population, and you split the FY '20 further modified budget, you can see that what you're going to look at is our modified budget actually has a lower per pupil expenditure than the FY '20 level services budget for in-district students. The total per pupil expenses is greater, slightly greater than the level services, but the total in-district per pupil expenditure is less than level services.
So can we get this, can you send us this with the FY19 in here as well? Because
Yes.
I would argue with you that if you built level services by saying you took what we were currently doing and went to the expected increases, why would you not have moved up out of district at that point in time? Because you would expect to be paying what you're actually paying.
It
versus
wasn't in
what
there.
It wasn't in there.
That's what Matt, when Matt used the phrase mistakenly proposed, I think what you were referring to, Matt, was that in the out-of-district proposed expenses for FY '19, it was undercut by $370,000. Is that
Yeah.
what you're saying? Part of
least.
the conversation that we have had with Jill, when this process was happening last year, there was a notion of, you're cutting 10%. Yeah, but you're cutting 10%. Yeah, but you don't, I can't do, you're cutting 10, okay? So the 10% was cut and the kids stayed out of district. Well, so we are making a concerted effort to hit a $100,000 mark to bring kids back and to build a program with a plan, not just, Jill, you're cutting 10%. So what Matt is sharing is that mistakenly proposed number. It was the fact that there was a blanket percentage taken out of district expenses that never should have been taken out because the
can't.
kids were all there and there was no.
You can't do that until they're
Kid
back.
still stays there and you still have to pay for them.
So that's why, does that
Well,
make
yes,
sense?
it does and it doesn't. So yes, it makes sense that there was an error, but we've seen that error as we've seen our monthly reports every
Yeah,
month. You
yeah.
know, we know that there's an error.
Right.
So in building the level funded, the level services.
service.
Level funded was just what we got last year we'll use.
Right.
And we know we can't even survive. In building the level services budget,
It was based on the FY '19 budget,
Wouldn't-
proposed
But you
budget.
said, so I added 2.5% to, or 3% to Unit C salaries, and I added 2.5% to electricity. Why wouldn't you have added something there knowing we weren't meeting it?
We fixed it in the zero.
So we
We
don't
fixed
fix
it in
it
the
till
zero
they're
base.
modified, okay.
Yeah, now that's where it's fixed.
So the 9,000 is all the special ed, correct? Those 4 lines?
Oh,
Yeah, the 9,000,
Function codes.
yep,
You
actually.
have, you have that 3,000 built into that now?
3,000,
100,000.
100,000?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so
That's why the number's so high.
that's why the number is so high.
Because otherwise I was going to ask to put 100,000 back from that other bottom line, just to cover special ed, because I think that anticipated is still
Iffy.
risky.
Has everybody nervous?
Doing some forecasting.
Well, I think the difference is we have a team dedicated to making the change instead of just saying, because even contrary to what is being talked about, you're cutting 10%, this committee has asked for several years for our out-of-district to be looked at. So I think it was with the intent of, we need to look at it and we need to reduce it by this much, but there was never a plan put in motion after that conversation
Sure, yeah.
to make it happen, and it sounds like that is already in the works, so.
May I ask a question on,
And I wasn't implying the committee was saying that, by the way. I'm sorry
No,
if
I
it came
do-
across
I
that way.
don't think you
on
might.
this, on this?
Absolutely.
4,400 network and telecom, that includes the new, does that still include the new phone system on the
Yes.
further modified?
let me just check the 40.
I mean, it's a 101% increase, so I'm assuming it includes something good.
It does.
Except we were told that was
It,
level
yes.
funded.
We are definitely planning on moving forward with the new
With the
phone
phone
system.
Okay. I
We
would say
can't
that
not.
would be something you would highlight on this, because I think that for folks out there and parents, that's like a good phase one.
Yeah, good.
Absolutely.
And we can answer your call at all times of the day. Get a message.
Yes, Aaron.
My question, and if I'm jumping ahead, I'm sorry, is what number are we going to certify next week? Will it be with the grants and the circuit breaker, or will it be minus the grants as we have in the past?
Yeah, I will prepare the number for certification minus the grants and the circuit breaker.
So it'll be that same format of taking up like
Yep,
12 different votes or whatever.
yes.
Yeah, that one right there.
I'm anticipating that the certification number, if we were to use this further modified,
Oh, I wasn't asking for what the exact number is, I was just asking what format we were
use that
going to
same
use.
format.
yes, I will.
If you're not ready to share that, I was just trying to find out if it was going to look like we were certifying 2 million more than last year, or if we were breaking it down.
It should look like you're only certifying
23.7?
23,406,604.
23,406,604.
What else did you subtract?
No, I didn't. That number right there.
Certified
23,406.
operating
You're
budget.
taking all of
Operating,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That backs that out of there.
Yeah.
Though, again, I need to double check if I'm allowed to remove all of the revenues that I included in backing out. I want to compare it to the document that
Which
you're
if we're
looking at.
not, and we are explaining it, I think that's fine. It's kind of a reset on
A lot of things.
on just the way it's
The way the process
delivered.
delivers.
We just need to make sure that it's understandable to the people watching that we didn't go from 22.6 million to 24.
No, absolutely.
I would recommend leaving it the way it is, like not putting that in there, because even if you explain it at a.
Well, he just said unless he does, because the way he built the budget, it's in the budget, so we may have to
Yeah, but we don't ever
specify
put,
where it's from.
we only put at the top line as the number that is the state aid
No,
and budget.
no,
We
that's our
don't put the
operating.
circuit breaker.
This says move to adopt the gross operating budget, and that wasn't a true number for a gross operating budget, if you really
It's a
think
net
about the way it's
operating-
worded.
It's a net
That's a net
operating
operating
budget.
budget.
Update the wording on the motion.
Yeah.
Correct. the wording.
I would just say it's probably going to
Because some of these are
add
assumed, like,
a motion to accept revenues from these.
but what if we don't? 'cause some
But
of
what
these
if you don't get that
actually-
revenue? You can't vote
Yeah.
to accept revenue that you don't know
I
what
think
the
you have
numbers
to
are.
use the same format we have used,
I agree,
and I think you need to keep it,
consistent.
It's very helpful to
And that's-
compare apples to apples.
yeah.
Yep.
And that's the
'Cause
format
it gets
that,
lost in
Yeah,
translation.
I understand,
Goes
I
way
understand.
But our
entirely.
numbers won't add up to what we're actually
they'll
spending.
add up to this number, 23,406,604.
But that's how we did it last year.
Right.
We certified the 22,000
Mm-hmm.
number, not the 24.
22 million.
And then we'll count on getting those revenues to make the difference. Yeah, I'll prepare the certification to the same format that you've seen it in the past.
But it sounds like the wording is,
The wording
Correct.
should be changed because it's not gross. Yeah.
Well, it is gross,
Well,
but.
yeah.
Was there any discussion, because this was pointed out a few slides back, I don't remember who said it, the amount of revenue collected for music fees is maybe half of what we collect for athletics, but we're not charging the same amount. Was there any talk of
We brought that conversation forward to cost
To the
center managers in the
director.
beginning of this budgeting process.
Okay.
And their hope was to not have changes to those fees.
Which, I mean, for me, it would be, if we upped it, they wouldn't lose as much, but if they don't, then we're still looking at these numbers. And I'm not saying increase it more than what we charge for the athletics, but, you know, there might come a point.
Isn't the thought with music, though, that the parents already fundraise a ton, so a lot more money is going back into the program through
That was,
them regardless?
that was
and
about
that's
8
why
years
their
ago.
fee is what it is.
Yeah, that was about 8 years ago, and that's why they fought to keep it. We still increased it at the time. We doubled it, I think, and the director at that time had come in and said, you know, you're asking the parents to pay the user fees, and they're already doing this much for,
Right.
and we've gotten that presentation from BMMA before too, but I'm just wondering, when is that?
Right.
When is there a difference? There are other boosters for other sports now that were not in place when that, you know, that argument was raised
Right.
to keep theirs lower. So I personally would only like to see if it saved something and made that much of a difference. I'm not saying just add it to the pot.
I guess I would say that if a department person or a cost center person felt that they were essentially losing too much, that would be their proposal to come forward with that. But they seem to be on board with. Is there anything on page 5? We're going backwards, yep, yep. But that people feel very strongly should not have been removed from the, and I feel very strongly some form of IXL for at least mathematics or something.
Look at that.
You know, it doesn't have to be K to 12, but at least, you know,
There should be something
fourth,
on
fifth, sixth graders, whatever.
I agree. And if you're bringing Newsella you can use at homes for the reading part, but I still think the math and home connection for that, I think, is really important.
Along with training and commitment.
Do we currently have IXL for just elementary levels this year?
It was, no, I believe if I remember correctly, I thought we had restored that in August. I will have to double
To
check.
the elementary schools?
I think the secondary schools are using it too, but I will have to
So
double
the
check.
only request I see, I said IXL, right? The only
Yes.
request I see it on is high school and middle school. That's why I'm
No,
questioning.
it's on elementary.
No, it's on elementary.
And it was on,
It might have-
it was on the
Sean's.
IT as well,
Yeah,
for
it's
district.
for a district-wide, yep.
So maybe they didn't put it on theirs,
double
but it
check
was
that.
No,
on
I think they
his.
did.
I'll double check though.
So is it truly 17,000? That's why I'm asking. I thought we had left it at our elementary schools, and you said you thought we restored it, but
Elementary, I mean, on this sheet, when we did the elementary workshop, technology, it said see district technology budget as well.
technology.
But IXL K through 12 subscription was 17,232. And then we started talking about the fact that they gave us a number, but then though that number was included in everybody's budget, and so it messed us up a little bit, but on the elementary school, they had IXL, Discovery Ed, and Brain Pop as new materials.
Yeah. I think we asked though, and I think we asked it of.
only
Sean,
on
he said
JFK.
And then the new Zella was on,
Middle school and high school.
further down.
I'm sorry, AFM. So maybe I'm saying only Blackstone.
For what?
Newsella's not at the
Some version.
upper elementary?
Absolutely, yep.
Yeah,
It
no,
doesn't
it
have to
is.
be
Oh, it is?
every
It's-
bell
it
and whistle,
wasn't-
but,
Wasn't new
Sure.
here?
Oh, okay. I don't have that sheet.
is there anything else that anyone?
I like the reduction idea versus elimination. I do like that concept versus cutting.
Nothing else?
Do we have what classrooms are expected to look like next year?
Yeah, so.
You got that right, but do we have updated maybe?
So, one of the things you notice from the first,
Iteration.
yes, the first iteration of this, we had 4 new teachers that we were looking to add. We were able to reduce that to 2, and I'll explain this because it answers your question. So, the 4, initially we had 2. We had one at. I'm sorry. We had one at Millville. We had one at JFK side of the complex, one at AFM side of the complex, and we had actually 2 at the high school. Was 5, and we reduced that down to 1. Right. So how we were able to get that 4 down to 2, we actually have a new. We were just informed of a vacancy at the middle school that we will not have to fill with a new position. We're going to be able to move somebody in an existing position that we're not going to need into that vacancy, giving us a vacancy at an FTE, a position at the middle school that we're not going to need. So we're going to take that position and we're going to move that position into one of the complex positions. So we actually only need to fill one of the 2 positions at the complex with a new teacher, like new money. So there's one there. The high school will be new money. That's a new position that we're going to have to add. But the Millville position, the projection for grade 1 for next year is between 27, 28 kids. We can't have 2 teachers in first grade with 27, 28 kids. We're at that same situation we were in with the kindergarten class. So what we are proposing is that we move that FTE to the 4-5 split that we need. The projections for Millville now, I believe Ms. Schaefer had mentioned this when she was here, I think for the kindergarten class is somewhere around 18, 19 kids. We know that will go up. But I mean, as far as the census information, I actually think it was right around 16, 17 kids, and I think we've had a couple of additional enrollments since. So it's not looking as though we're going to need 2 K teachers. And the first grade I know is a tricky situation, but again, I can't recommend 2 classes of 14 kids in first grade when we know we have a need at the 4-5 split. And I know this is a really difficult topic for folks, but that was how we were able to get those 4 positions to 2 new positions and then realign the existing positions we have.
So the 2 additional will end up being where?
Like the new money, so to speak?
Yes.
One at the high school and one at the complex.
And what is the average class size for the middle school, since there's one coming out of the middle school?
So it's a little bit different in each grade. Next year, collectively, we should be around 25.
Okay.
If you remember, the 6th grade, you may not remember this part, I'm sorry, Wendy.
I'm probably asking questions that have already been asked.
No, and I wasn't trying to frame it that way.
Changing.
But we had 8 6th grade teachers, and we had 138 kids coming up. Well, that's like 18 kids in a classroom, and I know everybody would love that, but we can't function that way. So we moved to teams of 3. So with those teams of 3, we're going to have 2 humanities teachers, and then we'll have a math teacher and a science teacher. And we're going to have 3 sections. So with those 3 sections, you're at like 25. Actually, it's less than that.
So that's the state average anyway.
Yeah, we're fine. We are well within the average. So collectively, we should be around 25, if not a little lower, at the middle school.
And I wasn't here for this, but I haven't heard much about Summit Schools. So I was just wondering, is that following through, or is that?
I have it on the agenda for April, but
Okay.
since you've asked, we're going to do a.
Leave it, I just didn't know if you talked about it before.
happy to
You don't have to
Wait,
say about it.
we do have a plan
Okay.
to discuss.
Any other things we want back out, back sideways?
Kindergarten size in Blackstone? Do we have a rough number?
Yeah, so we actually just had this conversation yesterday. Right now, it's looking, with the projections, we know they'll go up, but it's looking to be around between 18 and 20. We anticipate that being a little bit higher. with move-ins and such, but grade 1 is looking to be around 22 to 24 at JFK. And then by adding the the additional teacher, which makes 4 at second grade, that's where one of the new FTEs is going, the class sizes will be around 22 in second grade. This year, they're at 29 to 33, depending upon the section.
In second grade?
Yes.
Did you accidentally summon me?
Oops. This year, they're rent 29 to 33. I don't know what, these things really do listen to you.
They
when
do.
you-
Oh,
That's scary, huh? I didn't even touch that thing.
it must have been because I said Summit School.
Maybe it's bugged. Hang on. Maybe someone got a hold of my phone.
So some second grade classes had 33.
This year, yes. And if I could just give a shout out to our second grade teachers, for anybody
They
who
had the
looked at our
most-
STAR data, they
they
had
had
the
the most.
strongest growth.
Yeah.
In our 2-3 split at Millville, there's 36 kids in that math class. Now, granted, there are 3 to 4 adults at times. The growth in second grade at Millville really was like significant. 76% of the kids are at benchmark.
So the 28
That's
first
huge.
graders at Millville, does that include having another adult
I was
person in the room?
By adult person, like a para.
Yeah.
We haven't gone into the weeds on that yet, but we'll need to do something. But
Something.
it won't be a new position, and it's going to have to be a
No.
realignment.
But something.
But remember, we have that additional K position, the pre-K position,
that shifts.
that we tried to do something creative with. It was self-funded through tuition dollars. That we have some flexibility there, but I don't, with K, I don't know what that will look like yet. But
Anyone else? So we are good if these numbers go forward with just a little tweak? Yes, yes,
Yes.
Yes.
yes, yes. Aaron?
Yes.
so
Okay.
we'll make some adjustments we'll look at the IXL and we'll look at that intervention. And
Yeah, and if you can add 19 to here and then send that back to us.
absolutely.
And I would like the line detail, I don't know, would everybody, Tara, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's ready.
Yeah.
We can send it
So
to you.
when you get it,
Yeah.
because
Make the
I
adjustment.
also know that there are community people who are asking for it as well.
I think it's always helpful to get it at the end, because I looked
Final
at it
product.
from
Yeah.
last,
Right.
I looked at
I
last
have
year's
like
when we
6
started
versions
this.
of last year.
Well, that's it, I like
Are we off?
to know I have the actual.
Did we go?
We don't have anything else,
No.
do we?
No.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
Yes.
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 We don't have to roll call, but all those in favor, aye, aye, aye.
Aye.